Minister is on his way. Okay. In a moment, the Prime Minister will be here. Good. As soon as he walks up, maybe just a mark of respect, I'll ask that we all be standing to receive the Prime Minister. How about that, eh? And it'd be nice to stretch the muscles because you'll be seated for the whole day here. All right? Don't worry. If we get the muscles all stretched out, we can jump. There's a lot of water around this building. Probably swim back to Corky Market. Ladies and gentlemen, could you all please be standing? Can I ask that we all be standing to receive the Prime Minister? Thank you. Come on, can we give him a round of applause as he walks in? There you go. Thank you, Prime Minister. The Prime Minister has, of course, been ushered in by the host and City Governor and Governor for Prime Minister, thank you. For Northern, the Minister for Communication as well. Member for Ejivitari, thank you, and the Governor for Oro. Thank you so much. You may now be seated. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Now, why do I have the feeling that we're attending a funeral service on an occasion for a big meeting this morning? Thank you so much for coming. We're going to start. There you go. But, ladies and gentlemen, just as in-house matters, our event will be live broadcast today, and thanks to Digicel. I ask that you silence your mobile phones, but also do encourage you to invite your friends, family, and colleagues across the country to follow our deliberations and witness your participation on the UNDP, SUN, and the Loop PNG Facebook pages, as well as our own new United for Equality Facebook page. And I encourage you to tag #U4Equality in your social media posts. I also wish to alert you, just so that you know, that St. John's Ambulance is also here with us today. And should you feel unwell for some reason, please do alert our ushers, and who will immediately escort you to our health rooms on site. My name is Douglas Dimagi. I'll be your master of ceremony. I'm honored to be part of this historical event and a time for a change. Prime Minister, Excellencies, Ministers, Governors, Dignitaries, Commissioners, members of the Diplomatic Corps, heroes of our communities, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first annual summit on ending gender-based violence ever to be held in Papua New Guinea, and indeed the first of its kind in the entire Pacific. Now is the time. Thank you. Thank you. Now is the time, united for equality. I ask you to all perhaps rise again, if you don't mind, for our national anthem and a national song, and a pledge to be sung by the most remarkable voices of students from St. Joseph's International Catholic College. The voices you get to hear are from Ms. Zima Nainaka, Ms. Mesvin Chawan, Ms. Itosha Kombam, accompanied by guitarist Ms. Marie Nascentino. Thank you.
show you sons of this land. Let us sing of our joy to be free, praising God and rejoicing to be Papua New Guinea. Shout our name from the mountains to seas, Papua New Guinea. Let us raise our voices and proclaim Papua New Guinea. Now give thanks to the good Lord above, for his kindness, his wisdom and love, for this land of our fathers so free, Papua New Guinea. Shout again for the whole world to hear, Papua New Guinea. We are independent, we are free, Papua New Guinea.
Wow, thank you.
Land is the land of high mountains, of sunlit palms and coral seas, where the people sing as the drums are beating. Our land is strong and free, Papua New Guinea, Papua New Guinea, our motherland. Every tribe and race, let us work together, united we shall stand. There's a bright new day dawning for our land, as every tribe and race unite. Sons and daughters arise, we'll advance together, with God to guide us in the right. Papua New Guinea, Papua New Guinea, our motherland. Every tribe and race, let us work together, united we shall stand. Edatano, edatano, aitagodalaya, ina hari hari, aitatore isi, aita abia isi. Edatano, edatano, aitagodalaya, ina hari hari, aitatore isi, aita abia isi. Papua New Guinea, Papua New Guinea, our motherland. Every tribe and race, let us work together, united we shall stand. Every tribe and race, let us work together, united we shall stand.
Well, thank you, Zima, Besbin, Etosha, and Marie. Thank you. And we will remain standing to recite the national pledge. The pledge will be up on our screens. In a moment from now, we get to recite the pledge. If we could start perhaps after 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Now be seated. And thank you again to the wonderful performance there by the St. Joseph's International Catholic College. How about another round of applause? Amazing. Our Land is a very old song, and some of us have tried to stretch our memories to get the lyrics of the song again, or the words, but excellent. Brings back some great old fond memories. I now would like to invite, to welcome, in fact, to the stage the Reverend Roger Joseph, General Secretary of the Council of Churches, to officially open our summit with a moment of silence for those who have lost to gender-based violence, and to offer our prayers for those who are survivors as well, and those who have perpetrated such violence and are struggling to change, and all for whom it took courage to join us today, to stand for an issue that affects so many and which will take all of us to change. Today, we unite together for a Papua New Guinea that is free of the violence against women and children. A Papua New Guinea which is no longer held back from fulfilling our collective dream of a peaceful nation filled with hope, prosperity, and possibility for all. I ask you to bow your heads in silence for a moment of introspection on why we're here and what each of us can do to inspire change. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I now call upon Reverend Roger Joseph, of course, to please come forward and offer us our inspiration for today.
Let us please bow in prayer. Let us pray. Our national anthem, O Lord, has acknowledged you as a God of this nation. We have also pledged through our national pledge that we have a country that is free and that respects the rights of others. We reflect back to those people who have gone whose lives were caused by violence. We pay tribute, O God, to those lives who were lost by such disasters. We pray for their families as we pause today to think of those lives who were violently lost. We thank you today, God, that we are able to come together and are able to see a united stand together, created by our leaders. So this reminds us, oh God, of your words when you created this universe. After the creation, you declared the whole universe to be good. This notion of goodness brings to us or reflects to us that peace is what you need for the world today. Peace brings prosperity. We pray for cultures of peace, because where there is peace, there is prosperity. where people will feel secure and go about their lives in very industrious ways. This peace becomes a challenge for every one of us, O God, to create societies that will be societies of meritocracy, where each will consider talent, intellectual achievements, and excellence of performance as worthier of reward. We see this peace to be creating environments where education will become an opportunity for everyone, because education will open up the minds of the people and will arm them with skills and knowledge and seek out opportunities, where we will see science and technology embraced by our people so that we can become more developed. We will be able to see free market economics as creating incentives for good performance. So God, as we come today, we want to thank you for having created that thought into the minds of our leaders who have become your agents of change today, in declaring that this is the time to stand together in unity for equality. As we come together, God, we pray that your inspirations will continue throughout this summit. Your inspirations will create wisdom that will enable discussions that will become way forward for our nation. We pray for our leaders, the government leaders, the church leaders, community leaders, business leaders, that we will all stand together in this one accord and stand and declare for unity, declare for peace. We thank you for the decisions our government will make in uniting the whole nation into this one accord. We continue to pray and commit this summit into your hands. We pray that you will continue to inspire us, that the decisions we will reach, that the resolutions we will reach will not end here, but will create an environment that will become conducive for everyone, Lord. We pray for the members who are all gathered here and those who will be watching through live telecasts. We pray, God, that each person will be touched in your own way as they watch this summit in the next 2 days. Thank you, O God. We pray for your presence throughout this summit, for we ask all this in no other name but in the mighty name of Jesus Christ, who is our Lord and who is our Master of peace. So be it, O God, so be it. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Roger Joseph, General Secretary of the Council of Churches. Ladies and gentlemen, please give him another round of applause as he takes his seat. Thank you. It is now my deepest privilege to invite to the stage the two co-chairs of the National Coalition of Parliamentarians to End Gender-Based Violence, the Honourable Powers Parker, Governor, NCD, and the Honourable Alan Bird, Governor, East Sepik. These two leaders convened only in August of this year, 20 parliamentarians that have made the most powerful commitment to end gender-based violence in this country and to promote an equal and just society for all. Ladies and gentlemen, could you please welcome, of course, the two governors, Alan Bird and Powers Parker.
Prime Minister, Excellencies, Ministers, Governors, dignitaries, Commissioners, members of the Diplomatic Corps, heroes of our community, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Port Moresby and to our first annual summit on ending gender-based violence.
NCDC is extremely proud to host this summit in our capital city, the amazing Port Moresby, where I do hope you all joined us yesterday for an amazing walk and help us in dancing the unity dance, the Jerusalem dance, with our community women leaders. That was a moment of freedom and joy for women in our city who are usually restrained by fear and by shame. Why? Because simply they are women. Thank you today for showing up in such force and for standing united with all of us for equality and to end violence.
Sadly, here in Papua New Guinea, we face some of the most horrific rates of violence against women and children found anywhere in the world. But now is the time. For those who perpetrated violence in the past, join us and let that past go. For those whose lives have been torn apart by violence in your childhood or are now as an adult, stand tall today with all of us at your side. Prime Minister, Excellencies, Ministers, Governors, dignitaries, Commissioners, members of the Diplomatic Corps, heroes of our communities, ladies and gentlemen, now is the time for us to unite. One people, one country, one nation, men, women, boys and girls, together we stand side by side for equality.
Because equality is not a foreign concept. It is part of our culture and part of the very constitution on which our great and beautiful nation was founded. And so, on behalf of my co-chair, the Honorable Alan Baird, and myself, and our fellow coalition members, we thank you for coming, and we thank our partners at the United Nations, UNDP, UNICEF, UN Women, UNFPA, as well as the Spotlight Program, and the European Union, and the Australian governments, and our corporate partners, Digicel, the National, FM 100, for all your support bringing us to today. Thank you all for taking the time to come from around the country, and to those of you who work every day to make our country safe for women and girls, we say welcome. Let's have a great summit.
Thank you, Governors. Please thank again Governors Alan Baird and Paul Sparko. I'd like to also just remind, of course, to encourage everyone in the audience to be posting on social media, #PNGU for equality. Let's create a social media, let's create a social media storm in the country and the world. Having said it, of course, now it is my greatest pleasure to share a short congratulatory video address on behalf of the United Nations from Her Excellency, Ms. Amina J. Mohammed, UN Deputy Secretary General. Please watch this.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, it is a pleasure to join you for this first National Summit on ending gender-based violence in Papua New Guinea. Let me begin by recognizing the amazing leadership and the work of the Prime Minister and governors and others in bringing about this summit. I was fortunate to celebrate last year's International Women's Day in your beautiful country. On that occasion, I met with inspiring women in the gardens of Tari in the highlands and drew attention to a difficult issue that affects us all, violence against women and girls. Since the outbreak of COVID-19, reports indicate that gender-based violence has increased globally. The Pacific, where rates of violence were already among the highest in the world before the pandemic, have not been spared. Collective and comprehensive action on ending violence against women and girls could not be more urgent. It is for this reason that I welcome the recent creation of a coalition of parliamentarians to end gender-based violence. This is the kind of leadership the world needs right now, and the United Nations is ready to stand by you and support you. Our Spotlight initiative launched for the European Union, is an unprecedented global effort to invest in gender equality and in ending violence against women and girls as a precondition for the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. In the Pacific region, the Spotlight Initiative focuses on addressing domestic violence and intimate partner violence, working with key regional institutions and diverse stakeholders. The initiative builds on and complements existing action and supports in particular efforts led by civil society that are driving concrete change at scale with limited resources. Excellencies, friends, we all continue to mourn the death of Jenilyn Kennedy, whose murder has highlighted the prevalence of brutal violence against women and girls in Papua New Guinea. This tragedy captured the nation's attention and filled all of us with outrage and sorrow. We must draw the appropriate message from her life, which to me is quite clear. Ensuring gender equality and ending violence is our common responsibility. I hope to join you for the second annual summit to witness the transformation which starts today. Thank you.
One of the most powerful women on the face of this earth, and it's pleasing to know that she set foot here in PNG. How about that? Her Excellency Ms. Amina J. Mohammed, UN Deputy Secretary General. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce to you His Excellency Mr. Janev Vededik. He's the EU Ambassador to PNG. Ladies and gentlemen, could you please make him feel welcome as he comes up to the stage with his address. Thank you.
So, Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Reverend, Honorable Governors, ladies and gentlemen, first I should specify that my ambassador didn't just get younger. I'm his deputy. He's still in quarantine, but I will represent him with pride. Thank you. So, allow me first to express my appreciation for giving the European Union the opportunity to make opening remarks at this impressive event. It's a full house, as I can see. We know that it all started with the tireless work of Honorable Governors Parkop and Alan Bird, and not only this from this summer. I understood that years ago they started their efforts in their constituencies. So they initiated, now recently, this coalition of the willing and signed a historical resolution for ending GBV in PNG. Let me congratulate you for your leadership in addressing the GBV, this shadow pandemic in PNG. We know that the challenges are huge. There are certain root causes that are not easy to eradicate. But men all across PNG should understand that now is the time. It's time for a change. If needed, they should look in the mirror every morning and repeat to themselves, men and women are equal. Men do not own women. And this is irrespective of the bride price tradition or other cultural habits. I will not call all of them traditions. Let me underline at the same time that we are not here to teach lessons. Gender-based violence is not unique to PNG. It's a global phenomenon. It is still an issue in Europe as well, particularly in Eastern Europe, where I'm coming from. Therefore, we are here to share lessons and find solutions together. So what the EU is doing to support you? We are at the origin of the Global Spotlight Initiative in partnership with the United Nations. PNG is one of the countries that was specifically selected. We have a total amount of about 80 million kina. But it's not about the money here. It's about how to use the funds to achieve progress. And since March, a very solid program has been implemented in PNG. However, we all know that 80 million kina is not that much. It's just a drop in an ocean. And will only work in complementarity with PNG's own measures. It should all start at home, in the family. Parents should learn how to educate their sons and daughters about equality. Thereafter, the message should be carried by the core formative institutions, nurseries, schools, universities, and churches. Gender equality and GBV prevention should become part of their basic curricula. Yes, law enforcement and help for the victims are very important, but prevention, through intensive education and awareness should be the priority. Ladies and gentlemen, the road ahead is not a smooth one. We know it. Changing mentalities and cultural patterns is not easy. But with commitment and initiatives, such as this one, we will succeed. Together, we can certainly make a difference. Together, we can end GBV once and for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Representing His Excellency Mr. Zhenya Vededik, the EU Ambassador to PNG. And now, it is also my pleasure, again, to introduce to you His Excellency Mr. John Phillips, Australian High Commissioner to PNG. Ladies and gentlemen, please make him feel welcome. Thank you.
Morning, Ogata. The Honourable James Marape, Mrs. Rachel Marape, Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea. I'd like to acknowledge particularly today the co-chairs of the Coalition of Parliamentarians to End Gender-Based Violence, the Governor of National Capital District, the Honourable Powers Parkop, as well as the Honourable Alan Bird, Governor of East Sepik. Members of the Coalition of Parliamentarians to End Gender-Based Violence, ministers, governors, parliamentarians, excellencies, and a particular mention, I think, today of the Acting Representative for UN Women, Caroline Nyamaya Mombe. Very welcome to this country with a great deal to be done here, I think. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a terrific initiative. I'm really pleased to be here today at the launch. This first National Summit on Gender-Based Violence demonstrates the significant commitment of the leaders and of yourselves of this country. The efforts leading up to this National Summit, including the passing of the resolution on ending gender-based violence in your Parliament and the establishment of the first ever coalition of parliamentarians, are significant achievements. But we all know there's a very great deal more to be done to put this into effect. I've only been in Papua New Guinea a short time, but I've been very lucky to see quite a lot of the country, and particularly some of the amazing Papua New Guinean women who represent your country and who do such great good, real power matters. But we know, too, that throughout the country there are a great many other women who haven't had the opportunity to make a mark in this country. And part that is because of gender-based violence. And it's imperative the future of your country, for all our futures, to empower them and to enable them to really take their part in this nation. Gender-based violence, and especially violence against women and girls, it's a global issue. It affects 1 in 3 women in their lifetime globally. This isn't just devastating for the survivors of such violence and their families, but also entails significant social and economic costs. Countries like Australia, my own country, are certainly contributors to this problem. Violence against women is a serious, widespread issue for us. 1 in 3 Australian women have experienced physical violence after the age of 15. And we know that in the recent lockdowns for the coronavirus, that violence has spiked in homes against women and against girls. In PNG, at least 2/3 of women report that they have experienced violence at some point in their lives. That's double the global average. In both of our countries, as in the rest of the world, we need to take action to end this, to stop the fear and the hurt. Preventing and responding to violence against women is a key element of Australia's flagship gender investment in Papua New Guinea. That's the Pacific Women Shaping Development Program, known as Pacific Women. And most of the money that we're investing in that program goes towards the prevention of violence against women and provide expanded support services for those who've experienced it. Through the Pacific Women Program, we worked in partnership with the Government of Papua New Guinea to develop the PNG National Gender-Based Violence Strategy 2016 to 25. And that's our guide to our continued effort to address gender-based violence in this country. Since the program began, Pacific Women has also worked with a range of partners in several provinces on response and prevention. For example, over 900,000 women, men and girls and boys have been reached through one-on-one discussions, group forums and campaigns that challenge social gender norms and violence. It is through this work that we must all contribute to getting through to women and men and girls and boys throughout the country in order to effect change. 18,000 women and girls have accessed crisis support services, including counselling, case management, health and justice services, and emergency repatriation integration support in case of extreme violence. And about 3,500 men have been engaged in promoting gender equality. The private sector here has seen an increase in gender-smart workplace policies, which has improved the recruitment, retention and promotion of women employees. And we will continue to provide support to the Business Coalition of Women to continue this incredible work. In addition, Australia's Justice Services and Stability Development Program, the PNG Australia Policing Partnership, have provided women with greater access to justice, legal protection and support processes. And we hope to continue to support the PNG Constabulary in their very strong work in developing more gender-based response systems in police stations across the country. Most recently, we provided targeted support to maintain family and sexual violence services during Papua New Guinea's COVID-19 response. And that support has helped ensure PSV services were considered essential services during the state of emergency, providing survivors with critical support at a very difficult time in all our lives. Recognising the importance of good data, the Australian Government is also pleased to support the 2016 to 18 PNG Demographic and Health Survey, which has included for the first time modules on women's empowerment and on domestic violence, an important contribution to the evidence base for addressing gender-based violence in Papua New Guinea. These issues are priorities for us, as I hope they will become for the whole country of Papua New Guinea, and as I know they are for all of you in this room today. We will endeavour to improve gender equality and women's representations in all aspects of our partnership with Papua New Guinea. We recognise it's a complex development challenge, it's a complex social challenge, and Australia stands in solidarity with the Government of Papua New Guinea and its stakeholders to address it. We believe there is great value in coming together for equality, united for equality in forums such as this, learning side by side, exchanging ideas and encouraging each other to work towards ending gender-based violence in Papua New Guinea. Once again, let me congratulate parliamentary leaders, government agencies, business stakeholders, all that are here today, and wish you all a successful summit. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency John Phillips, Australian High Commissioner to PNG. Excellencies, ministers, governors, dignitaries, commissioners, members of the diplomatic corps, heroes of our communities, ladies and gentlemen. Now for the keynote address, the opening address, for the first ever National Summit on Ending Gender-Based Violence, could you all please make welcome the Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, the Honourable James Marape. Could you all please be standing in regard of us? Welcome. Thank you, Prime Minister.
All right, thank you very much. You may all sit, please. All right, Governor of NCD, the Honorable Powers Pakop, the co-host of this wonderful and auspicious occasion, meeting where we are advocating non-violence in our society, especially stopping violence against our women, mothers, our daughters, our children. Let me also acknowledge our co-host governor, Governor Alan Baird, as well as all the other governors. I know a few of my colleagues in cabinet with us, Vice Minister, members of Parliament, but more importantly, our dignitaries, our members of our diplomatic corps, as well as every one of you who have volunteered your time to come in this occasion, as well as those who are listening and tuning in from right across our country, including the amazing Port Moresby. Today is time to stop violence, and I fully subscribe to the theme of this conference. I will be very, very short. Usually I speak quite long, but I'll be very short today to signal that it is time to stop talking and time for us to act now. Is that okay? It is now time to stop talking as well as stop the violence against women amidst us. Papua New Guinea, if we truly want to be the richest black Christian nation on face of planet Earth, and if this statement rings loud into your inner fabric of your existence as a Papua New Guinean citizen, then it is really time now for men folk amongst us to rise up and take this bull by the horn and pledge, not at a corporate level like this, but more importantly, pledge at your own personal setting, that you must be the real man in your home. You must be the real man and boy in your home. It starts at your home. It starts at that foundational level. And I stand here today to make this commitment that me, not as your Prime Minister, but me as me, James Marape, will stop violence against women. At my home, first and foremost, and so I appeal to those of us who belong to the more masculine gender, as we claim ourselves to be, use our muscle for the betterment of our country. Use our resources for the betterment of our country. Use our talent for the betterment of our country. And it starts at you, not someone else. It starts at you at your home. It starts at you first and foremost at your home, and I repeat, home is the foundation of our society. The first government was in the Garden of Eden. There wasn't 10 million people, as we are in PNG. There wasn't 7 billion people as we are on the face of planet Earth today. The first government was a government of Eve and Adam. God presided over the first existent and first wedding, and God pronounced them to be equals. Adam was rested, and from his ribs, Eve was created. God, omnipotent and almighty as he is, would have chosen a bone from the legs if ladies and Eve was to be trampled upon or to be treated as slave. Or God would have chosen a bone from up at the top if Eve was to be the boss. God chose ribs right at her side. Some of you latest Papua New Guineans claim your girlfriends and wife to be your missing rib found at last. Well, if you are one of them who pronounce that beautiful woman in your life as your missing rib, then you ask yourself this question: are you going to hate your missing rib all the time? For she was created to be your equal, your partner, your helpmate. Violence begots violence. If you have a daughter in your home, then imagine what her own life will be, a generation from your life. If you want her to be abused in her own home, when she finally finds a husband of her own. No, you don't. For I am a father of a daughter. I don't want my daughter to be abused. And so I today would like to stop my conversation here. It's not time to continue on talking. You don't need government to impose laws after laws. You can be the man in your own home today, to rise up today. If you truly want your country to rise up, if you truly want your country to be great, it is time we act as Christians should act. Christians must love, and love starts at home, and love stops violence, and first and foremost, violence against your wife. For if you are a man amongst us who likes to see your wife as a punching bag, as my tambus from Sipik always like to say, you marry man, you marry man, you're not a real man. So I encourage every man amongst us, if we truly want our country to be prosperous, to be healthy, to be wealthy, then a woman needs to smile all the time with us. For the women are the anchor of our economy. I don't know about rest of you, but I'd like to believe it is the same. In our tribal lands, it is the women who were the foundation of our society's economy. They carry the load. They carry the burden. They ensure the man is the man in society, in the face of society. It is the mothers who sit at the back who make what man is. Modern PNG must see the traditional richness of our society where we place value on our women who carry our traditional economy. Modern PNG must also carry women as the anchor of our society and anchor of our country. And today it is now time for each and every man amongst us to stop violence. And first and foremost, I'd like to appeal to every one of us who subscribe to Christian principles. The reason why I coined this phrase, richest black Christian nation, is simply this. Black is our past. Rich is our destination. Not just rich in money terms, but the fullest meaning of richness is rich in character, rich in Christian character. Christianity must be our identity. The Christian principles teach us deep inside respect, love, kindness, graciousness, forgiveness. The world outside must look into PNG and see a practicing Christian nation, and it starts at us, at home, not at Wagani. It starts at home. And each and every one of us carry a home in us. We carry a woman amongst us. And I ask for us today, for men, to pledge that we will stop violence against women. Let me conclude by the experience of the first family. When Eve picked that fruit, she passed on the fruit to Adam, and sin first came. God, in his wisdom, never went looking for Eve. God called Adam, where are you? In Genesis chapter 3, verse 7. I don't intend to preach here, but I read Bible as the anchor of deep philosophy and principles that guide me and should guide us as a nation into tomorrow. Why did God call Adam instead of Eve? God created Adam first. God created man first. God gave greater responsibility to man to care for the woman that he created out of his ribs. It is us men who must care for a woman amongst us. Even if the woman wrongs you, if you feel, don't forget the experience of Eve and Adam. God never called Eve. God called out Adam. For Adam, God placed greater responsibility of care over that woman, Eve. It is us, the male, that God gave us responsibility to care for our family, our society, our community, and our country. Men must rise up to stop violence against women. God bless each and every one of you. God bless each and every one of you. Papua New Guineans, men, rise up today and stop violence at your home. And collectively, we can build a nation that has no violence against women amidst us. I look forward to the conclusion or the full summary of this report. I will excuse myself. I have University of PNG graduation that is waiting on me. And I apologize for turning up late. But thank you for this occasion. May this annual event continue to tick off every step of the way our path towards eliminating violence against women amidst us. God bless.
Thank you, Prime Minister, the Honorable James Marape, for the powerful and encouraging words. Ladies and gentlemen, can we all thank the Prime Minister again? Oh, thank you so much. As he makes his way out, he's got other commitments as well. But we thank you, Prime Minister. All right. Okay, you may be seated then. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the cost of gender-based violence in Papua New Guinea is high, physically, emotionally, and economically, in terms of opportunities lost for women and children, their families, communities, and the country as a whole. Living in constant insecurity prevents women and children from leading the normal lives of free citizens and creates an untenable environment for growth and development. Gender equality is a principle strongly advocated for in the Constitution of Papua New Guinea, without a doubt, and the country's primary goals and directives. Further, gender equality is identified in extensive bodies of literature as the principal underlying cause of gender-based violence. Highlighted in the SDG 5, gender equality, the achievements of gender equality outcomes are critical to change Papua New Guinea's development targets, where it is important to note that in the UNDP's 2018 ranking on gender equality, Papua New Guinea stood 161 out of 162 countries. You might want to think about those stats. With those remarks, on the status of GBV in PNG and gender equality as a solution, it is now my pleasure to introduce to you the Honourable Wake Goy, MP, Minister for Community Development and Religion. Please make him feel welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to take this time and the privileges to thank our Prime Minister. He made a very important, remarkable speech across to this nation, and I hope every citizen as their 2 years as open wide, and other spokesmen have spoken so far, and our 2 governors that have spoken, and everyone in the queue to speak at this summit today and tomorrow will really go down deep to the Papua New Guineans that really bring this problem about that we putting this summit forward to address. I also would like to acknowledge our governors who are present at this very time, and also our colleague ministers and other vice ministers, our CEOs, our diplomatic core dignitaries, our development partners, departmental heads, church leaders, NGOs, our media team, and of course, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say some of the achievements and some of the failures and some of the challenges, and of course to end with the way forward that all of us can work together to achieve as time rolls on. As the minister responsible for the ministry of this department, along with youth and religion, I must admit that the journey in this addressing of gender-based violence has been extremely challenging in a very young country like ours. As we all know, GBV is a very global issue and a development agenda. Every nation in the world has its own way or journey and a story on how they've, tackled this gender-based violence, or how they are still addressing GBV in their own nations today. PNG is no different. As a nation, we have signed the UN Convention to eliminate the discriminations of all forms for violence against women, or in short called CEDAW Convention. PNG further demonstrated the CEDAW Convention when we established laws, policies, and strategies that arrived aimed at addressing issues of the violence against our women and girls of this nation. Despite our challenges, I'm happy to state that PNG government has made great strides in terms of development and of our national laws, policies, and strategies discriminating or criminalizing all forms and abuse and violence against our women and girls and families for this matter. And for the first time, as we went through budget last time, I saw some good funding there to address issue, and we will seek to find some better ways to address these issues as we go into next year. Over the years, the government, through my department, with the support from its partners, introduced the Lukautim Pignini Act the Family Protection Act, the National Women and Gender Equality Policy, the National Child Protection Policy, and the National Prevention and Response to Gender-Based. These are some of the policies that will address or is in force now, but it's not properly addressed. Maybe we will find a way to how best we can address all this. These were developed with the hope of protecting our women, children, and families of this nation. In 2016, the National Strategy to Prevent and Respond to GBV was launched, providing a roadmap guiding an inclusive government-led approach to implementing all legislation, policies, and programs. The national strategies to prevent, respond to gender-based violence adopts a rights-based approach and takes into account all forms of violence against women in this country. The strategies aim to be streamlined across all sectors to ensure a coordinated rollout of strategic intervention which will lead to the general prevention of GBV. With the freeze in recruitment since 2015, an interim secretariat has since meeting budgetary support to roll out its programs. Under the national GBV strategy, provincial GBV strategies will be established in all provinces and into the districts, so that all reportings from the district will come to the national, and the national policies and other logistics will be shipped through this channel all the way to the rural settings. And this has already taken shape in some provinces like East New Britain, Morobe, and some other Highlands provinces, and will help the national government improve in establishing provincial GBV secretariat in other provinces. In 2019, the GBV attained social, law and order, SLOS sector agencies, head and ministers support enabling GBV a standing item for SLOS Ministerial Committee chaired by Honorable David Stephen, and further approved and recommended to National Executive Council NEC for the establishment of Special Parliamentary Committee on Gender-Based Violence. Furthermore, also have the Criminal Code Act, where anyone who causes assault, grievance, bodily harm, attempt, murder, or manslaughter, or other all offenses, and that person can be charged. The act is administered by the police department. Somewhere along the line, this probably has never been tightened up, so a lot of our culprits who really gone free or bail out and never ended into court. So these are some of the risks that we need to address and make it happen. The government of Papua New Guinea also developed a 3 comprehensive society, and which preps the accusation-related violence, national action plan to address the problem of sorcery, accusation-related violence, and this plan is also administered through the Department of Justice and Attorney General. Obviously, these are laws to protect women and families from all forms of violence. Abuse in any way or in any form or shape is illegal. Our women and families are already protected by laws. After 45 years of independence, we celebrate the laws, the policies, and the strategies that we have today are very good working strategies after 45 years what are these challenges that challenges us? How can all partners, as we get it today, will help to address these issues in PNG and reduce and eventually eliminate the incident and violence of this country completely. Some of the challenges that I can share with you today is the challenges for us as a nation has been enforcement of these laws into entirety. Enforcement of these laws need a whole of government and all of society support, while the law enforcement agencies in this area that needs to be stepped up, our communities and societies also need to raise up and take the ownership and leadership in addressing this. As Prime Minister was saying, here we as corporate gathering together, discussing issue at a very high level, but getting down to the rural and the family level, it's holistic approach. Everyone has to, one way or the other, play their part. Forgive, forget, and if they can't continue to disobey the law, belting up their wives, they must be referred and they must be prosecuted and put behind bars. And if this is done, we'll give a challenge to others across the country so that they will see that the law is tougher, it's getting on those who have committed, and they will start, coming down and becoming good citizens of this nation. Genuine funding to implement these important laws and policies is to protect and empower our people. It still remains a silence for us. And I have said in the beginning, we are starting to see some good increase in the gender-based violence budget. As I look through the papers, that were presented to NEC some time ago for just some preview of what was in there. I saw some good increase. And we would want to ask, I'm part of the government and I'm part of the NEC, we'll still fight to get some increase so that we will have a proper channel where people can communicate freely for those who are causing troubles to be arrested and put before the law to deal with them. Parallel programs are still continuing today and remains a major silence today. And the challenges of proper coordination, monitoring, and reporting on our joint efforts and in its effect on the improvement of the lives of our people still remains a very big challenge. Even I became the minister some 18 months ago, I still don't know how to handle these big issues. It pops up. It's not a virus that it's spread on that you can find a stop somewhere. I am talking now, and I can belt my wife some 1 hour later if I see a mistake that a boiling or a pressure that from the inside that is causing. There are different types of, gender-based violence. Some are very continuous one and finally end up, girls losing life or women losing life. But some just pop up and goes down and they forgive and forget. So it's very, very hard. And then funding is another issue. I wish I had a hotline system where everyone across the country can ring me right away. I can ring police or CID people to go straight to this village to pick up and all this. This is a very complicated, a bit, but we have to get these things in order to bring all these issues under control. As a government, we have established system that really needs support and strengthening to improve. And I would like to thank the partners, the donors, the churches, the governors, and all holistic approach and individual approach we will truly eliminate. This is the world. You don't dream of heaven. Bring heaven down and dream on earth. is still part of the earth. We will still have some problems, but we would like to maximize and bring it down as much as we can. And this needs everyone's approach. And everyone in this building, we will make a difference as we go out of this building, and we will remain this way a long way. Then we will tell others that they have to do the same. They have to improve the same way. The way forward, after 45 years, we got independence. And so one of the media fellow asked me, have we gone too far? I said, we have come too far, but very excitingly that we have all the resource, all the young people, the potential people that we have today will bring good change to the future, the next 45 years. We have the resource that is not completely depleted, still there, that we can enjoy and bring it forward. But we can go together and we will enjoy everything that is in this land only if we have good community, good family, and a good society, and a good country. What the government is doing in the next 45 years, we begin this summit and we will go into the future with very minimal violence against women. As the government, we have reflected on our journey as a nation, and we have learned many lessons which allow us to refocus our attention and address the challenges with the focus on prevention of family protection and empowerment programs. The real pandemic affecting many of our families and communities today is violence in all shapes and forms. Violence a major hindrance to progress and development in our country today and must be uprooted and destroyed as we ready to take back this country. To improve government coordination, the department has established a national database for churches which tell us where all churches are established and what services that the people provide in terms of health, education, and community services such as mediation, conflict resolution, child protection, and disability services, and gender-based violence. Some few months back, I was at the Islander Holiday Inn. A man best have his wife right in front of the hotel. And I was there. I rang Governor Papaos Pakov, and I said, please arrange some police. And all the security forces, I told them, they came together. We tried to stop this lady. She turned around and she belted all of us, protecting her husband again. She reversed everything, When you bring someone to the jail, waiting for bail, meri by kam natok, sore planti pignini, sore long em can come na, can stop. Na help him na look out him pignini. Meri am talk, mastablo miya, sore long em belat na paitimi na mixing blood tasol. Nungut tubla make me go na go kalapus. Some slackness, some weakness in the process of enforcing law. We have these problems. We can all admit, or we can all confirm one way or the other. Maybe you have come across this sometime in your life. The government has established the National Child and Family Services Database, report on issues affecting our women, children, and family. This is an integrated database to better inform us on the victims, survivors, perpetrators, co-offenders, and child cases by province and district. This is a huge step in the right direction for this government, and I encourage all partners to support this. All child and family services offices throughout the country have been trained to collect data with their respective districts and provinces, and this will inform us to really see how far we go in this area. Are we minimizing or it's increasing all the time? And this will inform our leaders to better plan, to better budget, and holistically, we all can work together to address this so that we will have a better and fairer society for our girls, our women, and everyone. I wish to take this opportunity to thank the UNICEF for their support to this project, and especially for ensuring all our child and family services officers who are trained and given the fair knowledge to go about in addressing all this. I look forward to real and practical support to further enhance our joint efforts and improving the lives of families in our communities. The next 45 years, we would like to see a lot of changes. I would like to also thank the governor for the NCDC, the governor for Horo Province, the governor of East Sepik, and the other governor of West Sepik, our ministers, our leaders that are in here. Thank you for your support, and all our leaders, please, let's do as much as we can to really help our children, our women of this country, and our men as well. I call on all men and boys to join the Prime Minister on the 16th of this month to take a pledge that we will really change our lives. All kataman, you will join me on 16 September so that you may get match. You may go to Sejon Guy Stadium. Talk Savelo, Papua New Guinea. Na mibla like talk Savelo all police forces. Time mibla hot long display issue. Na mibla discuss long display issue. Usai di come up in display. All every come up long display time straight. Please, mibla must make him sawe. Mibla put him all police station. No, mibla refer me go low. You know look good long. Try him long, hold him all strong na. Make him sawe long all na kind of same. Somewhere along the line, they always escape. Always escape. So please, all money come na. You play joining me na. You me match na. You me talk sawe long all kata brata na papa line. Blow you me across this nation that me like look out in Mary Pignan blow you me. Proper along this country blow you me. All men and boys. By you black I'm joining me, you mean by wearing white t-shirts, nah, by you mean mask with joy, laugh, and respect for our family. Let us change the agenda. Let us be the role models for our sons and our future generations. Time to sanisim passing, sanisim passing. Think right, act right. I also make a call to all provincial and district administrators and the political leaders of this province to really take this on board na come up in the provincial level. No, so that you can campaign strong, na you can finish him display. One emia all man sa paitim all merina disla. With that, I will like to say out some few points in here, and a sample survey was conducted during the forum, noting how people react differently to violence when they witness violence based on the sampling survey done on the forum among the 320 participants. 22% assist to stop the violence. Also, EV come up, crossfire the staff, sampla online blow look tas all staff. Sampla online you go inside na help him na solve him. Or you sleep staff long and neighbor tubla crossfire the staff. Sampla you mining business, you run, you go to work, you go come na kind of sem. Tubla make him business belong all staff. You sleep upstairs, downstairs, only got heavy. That's all sampla time you mean no sawe. Help him. You mean no sawe go in long, disturbed. And display all sampla all report where can help him you me. 29% stated something belong all married. No problem lo me. That's 29%. 14% only fret. Nungu tol man come up maybe in me go talk round by all make him save lo me. They will belt me up okay no sem. 7% all go straight na paitim money come up in display vi longen. sambla or something that all geta, wok bung one time long help him. And the 14% as spectators, only look tasol na, lare maybe stop. If he come once, na out narapla. If he stop yet, you go na come up in big play. We will all be spectators, so we all find ways to try to go in long help him na kainol sema. Then you mean by help him na solve him problem. With that, me like asking me all kata to walk bung one time. Let's all walk bung one time. You may look him every staff, please report. Please report. Now, people beyond on this bung, we want to establish a proper, there's sufficient money in the budget. We will try to put some hotline where you buy ring straight na talk. Now, Mr. Lorenbo displa lot na section tubla maretiga devi or tubla save cross fight all time. So mibla by Salem all work money go. Suppose you can help him mibla all same. You yet in on aplo go in na help him. You can talk save so that displa way mibla can help him. Now throughout lo district mibla set him big pla all building at a value of 3-4 million mibla put him where all workman by staff. He got every all same all by come lo district level. Or by come lo provincial level lo sim help him. You may help him. You may no can look down long all. Cross staff you may help him. All rapla you may can look. Time you may responsible by you may help him na solve him display. He go down yet I want to also emphasize that you may use him all mobile or something you married pinisa. You must have responsible. Me now must go close to 35 years phone blow me must ring him Catherine Tasol. Now stop logoroka. Hello Catherine. You must talk all same Tasol. You must kiss him lo one bla meritasol. Some bla all in good bla, all by larem. Nubla marete you think him. Phone Tasol come up him display AV stop. You must admit. You must use him good. Phone him good bla something. Help him me na me can make him plenty work long. Me stop lo place and me make him some bla work lo mospi. Sambla lo Hagen, Sambla lo Jiwaka, Mr. Lo Mosby, me make him lo place. Tasol denem narabla. Hello, Minister, hey. Display kind about. Now me go in or talk, how are you na? Now me blang go, how are you na? Go and go abrus. Go lo ambaret na go lo narabla side. Now you look him. Somehow Mary Karim phone or me Karim phone, me no nablo lusim long house. Nongo talk hello na by look him. Na. O nongut salim sambla kain something nongut na. Mary by logim so phone ya. Come up baby vlomi now. Part of my heartbeat, I'm taking it around all the time. Because me got aswa finish. That's all. You know got aswa. By stop. Mary look him. Last time me lusim all sem na. Narabla boy go kisimya no ka. Ay Prime Minister ring ya. I'm talk all sem na. You look him. All can talk all sem moraita. You must responsible, papa na, mama na kain osem. I can't say you the real experience because middle Merinos have a cross one la time too, so fight them next level. That's all cross them no kat so how by me serem. Me no got display experience na me only minister me like try me long help him all man me just talk straight call out na finish so kain osem me no have law. Handle him proper na kain osem because also me no go through law display experience. That's all, please. M2 law, sensitive laws, cyber crime now, all display. You may act responsible. Run responsible. Think good. You may can spend him, you like spending money on display kind of road and give him 1,000 loan, narapla, marina, come up in family stuff. Give him me pla. Disability, me run, me look him, all need him money straight, yeah. Give him me pla. Now you mean give him all. Now you mean make him good pla. All health daily line, all need him. All car accident line, all lose him leg, all send down low disability home now. All need him help him. Or you mean make him more same. Or you mean help him more police now. Put him some money or kind of same. You mean no can make him number out long. Obviously you mean all him leaders. Obviously you mean all him. You mean must be responsible. Time you mean responsible. By you mean help him all apply you look him. Now suppose you mean no responsible. By you mean no help him na rapla too. Me now preach lawyer stuff na. Bian mi ko na mi pick him one bla lorot na mi kisi mi go hotel. Mi no reflect him leadership lo mi you look him. Me preach him narapla now mi go. Then bian Mary catch me now you look him. plate cup you tin wasim ya no ga them make him plenty noise so this la kind me no like him so me no like put him plenty talk that's all me like finish him up na me like talk also plenty something department me like ready lo make him that's all me play yet alone me plan on up. Me plan need him holistic approach where me amas long all diplomatic all come staff want them yumi, all partners come want them staff want them yumi, all churches staff want them yumi, all NGO staff want them yumi all kata yumi staff and me amas all man Mary all side the RM lo radio, all peace loving people, all have like him Mary pignanim long all every come all talk forgive and forget, me man through all this like man Mary and me like look out him all, talk strong long all, now all he can help him all rapla long, all he can conduct. Now this way and by you may help him. Lopinis him too, me like talk all Sam, please, you think him Mary Pignani long house, walk him by stop. You get up 7 o'clock, lose him house, now you must go to house before 5. Stop with them family. Kai long all get have. Only meeting long all get ha. Pignani sleep, you call late. Sorry, Papa, you know give him some plastia talk. How by all pignani go good. Mary cook na wait go no God. Mbelevi, me like responsible. Work lot time. You will never solve every problem of this planet Earth. You start lo managing family na raise them all proper. They will become collectively. They will become good people of our society, our country. By you mismanage him completely. You will help him, Mibla, report him, Mibla. Want them good funding next year, Mibla, by set him all get a phone line now. By Mibla, put him channel or mechanism in which all get all this like kind reporting again come. Na Mibla again follow up, na Mibla again refer him all go long law enforcing bodies. Now we make sure that only facing full law. Na all this like and something by Mibla make him so. All get a Yubla come, me as minister, me amamas, me. Enough Michael Sam, you may all kata work bung one time, now you may come up in this good pla country. Stop good pla man Mary. Please, God like him you pla, me like him you pla, you may stop good pla man Mary lo this pla country. And by smart through. Yes, you may stop lo wall. Not a perfect 100%, but you may stop free long olgara something. Heaven is the place that you mean by stop good tassel. On earth, do as much as we can. Long you can stop good family, look out him Mary Pignani, like him all, na all like him you me, na you may like him one plan arapla. One time this pla, me talk thank you through long you pla all kata he been stop part of it's actually my department that will implement. If I have gone anywhere wrong, if I have never responded any me talk sorry. Long this pla time Janet Bendai, I think all email number time you go momo yet na I can't even do anything, so I decided not to respond to anyone. I'm very sorry, but I can't go individual by individual. So thank you, forgive me in any way, but accept me and we go forward as a new country. Until this me talk, thank you.
Thank you, the Honorable Wakegoi, Minister for Community Development and Village. Another round of applause as he takes his seat, please. Thank you. Now, I also would like to acknowledge Cardinal Sir John Rebert, who's here as well. Cardinal, thank you so much for gracing this event with your presence. Thank you. I also see here, of course, the wife of the Prime Minister, Rachel Marape, is still here with us. Thank you, ma'am. Excellent. There you go. Our next speakers, ladies and gentlemen, including the Honorable Sir Dr. Pukatemu, is probably not here. I can't really see him at the moment. Now, so is Dr. Eric Kwa, who would have spoken on behalf of the Minister for Justice. Honorable David Stephen is also not here. And so we will move on. We will certainly move on with our plenary session. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I invite the chairs of the first session. Dame Carol Kidu, a former Member of Parliament, is also not here. Is she? Oh, there she is. Sorry, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. There you go. Also, the Honorable Gary Juffa, Governor for the Northern Province as well, along with the speakers and moderators for session 1 to be up on the stage, please. The chairs will take either end of the chairs, and of course the panel of the speakers will be seated in between. But as they arrange these, for those of you following this first day of the 2-day national summit through social media, the summit is aimed towards developing real, actionable outcomes which will dramatically shift the trajectory of gender-based violence and increase gender equality in our country, so that our women and girls are given the rights and freedoms affordable to them by the Constitution of our country. Now, the summit also aimed to keep the national government and indeed coalition of parliamentarians accountable, and to that end will result in an outcome statement that will be presented to the floor of Parliament when Parliament opens up for this budget session on November the 10th. And I realize Dame Carol is there. Dame, you can walk up, thank you, while you can come and take a seat. So is Governor, the Honourable Governor for Northern, as they take their seats on the panel up the front. No, but every session, ladies and gentlemen, has a rapporteur, and at the end of each session, the rapporteur, moderator, and chairs will agree upon their session's outcomes, statement, and the key recommendations. All these statements and recommendations will then be presented by the rapporteurs one by one tomorrow in session 5 for the coalition members, who will then deliberate their final statement. So this summit is about real-time action and change. On another note, for our timekeeping, our moderators have red and yellow cards to gently remind our speakers to keep their time limit, so that everyone has a chance to offer the interjections during the summit. Yellow cards will mean that you have 1 minute or less, and the red card means you will have to conclude immediately, or perhaps in a nice way. I also would like to remind you and our audience here, thank you so much. It's a lovely turnout. This is overwhelming. This room is packed to the brim. To be posting on social media, you can hashtag PNG U for Equality and share in quotes, photos, and comments on social media. Inequality is an issue that affects us all and is the root of the high rates of gender-based violence in the country. This is not only a constitutional and human rights issue, ladies and gentlemen, it is an economic imperative. To achieve Papua New Guinea's full potential, including achieving the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, all citizens must be able to fully enjoy the same rights, privileges, and opportunities. And if I may very quickly, the lofty goals and directives of the Constitution of the country cannot be achieved when women, half our population, are marginalized, and girls and boys have not access to the same opportunities. Political leaders must drive positive action within the jurisdictions and encourage others to do the same. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you the chairs of the first panel discussion on equality leading to change, Dame Carol Kidu, former minister, and Honourable Gary Jufa, Governor for Northern. I invite you to perhaps offer you an opportunity for your opening thoughts in just a minute or two. Dame Carol, if you'd like to. There you go. Could you all please make them feel welcome? Thank you so much, our panel.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, our MC. And I acknowledge Prime Minister, all the honourable ministers here, all our diplomatic corps, and everybody here, because everyone is important. The issue that's come up here, I want to really commend the members of Parliament for moving to make a parliamentary committee or a parliamentary group on this issue of GBV. But as this is done, I hope that we can go really deeply. Because gender-based violence is not possible on Papua New Guinea. Dia ite dakara. Guna, hahini maya protection. Before, women had protections. There were customs that protected women. And gender-based violence, as we see it today, is a result of rapid change and transition and influences from outside. Occasionally, traditionally in the 60s, 70s, I would see gender-based violence on very rare occasions. But quickly, very quickly, family would intervene to resolve the issue by traditional ways of resolving it. Those things are not happening now, and so because they've fallen apart, we need new ways. Honourable Minister has spoken about the laws. As we know, laws are needed, but they don't solve the problem. They're very necessary, but they don't solve the problem. So we've got to really dig deep and get it down to the people. I just want to make one recommendation with the parliamentary group. It's an enormously important movement because it must come from the top. To address an urgent social issue such as this, where we see horrific violence, which again I repeat is not culture, I'm not Pasambula or Papua New Guinea, horrific violence against women. We see abuse of custom, with things like dava. Dava has been translated linguistic imperialism into the word bride price. Dava was not a price. Women were not a commodity that were priced. Traditionally, the essence of dava actually protected women. So please, as we investigate this phenomena that is like a scourge in our society now, please dig very deep. I would actually say there were no concepts of equality, inequality in some ways traditionally. Every woman went to the garden. Every man went to the garden. They did different jobs in the garden. Every woman went to the sea in the Motu society. Every man went to the sea. They did different jobs. So it was more about those things. It wasn't about equality and inequality. So please, get all the best brains together and get them digging into this issue much, much deeper than we have in the past. And as you go ahead with your parliamentary committee, think very carefully about your secretariat. You're all very, very, very busy people. Parliamentarians don't have time to run these special parliamentary groups and parliamentary committees and things, special groups. Think carefully about your secretariat and think about institutionalizing what you're doing. So it becomes an institutionalized part of the parliament. I remember back in my time, we started the parliamentary group on population and development, which is looking at the sexual and reproductive health issues for women, which is, again is a gender violence issue nowadays, the way it's going. We had a very strong secretariat, very driven, but that person, the person who drove it kind of went away. It was recognized by Speaker's office, but it no longer exists. So really look at sustainability of this group because it is very, very important and it's going to take a very long time to resolve this issue that we are facing now in Papua New Guinea. Thank you. Badahere Momakani.
Thank you, Dame Carol Kidu. Governor, the other co-chair for Northern Province, Honorable Gary Juffa, maybe 1 or 2 words in a couple of minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Douglas. And it's wonderful to see such a huge support here from all stakeholders, our partners, our members of the churches, NGO, and just about everyone I think is concerned about violence in Papua New Guinea and how it seems to escalate constantly and continuously everywhere you care to look. I think I agree with what Dame Hidu has just said here. She's absolutely correct. We can't just have this meeting and then, forget about it. It's got to have a consistent, constant, and continuous effort. And with that, I want to thank Governor Parkop for his passion for always ensuring that this subject matter is given the attention it deserves. We see a lot of interest. We see a lot of interest and concern in Parliament. In fact, it has always been there, but I guess we are seeing a movement whereby there are more and more members of Parliament who are speaking up and speaking out and looking for solutions. There has to be a push from the highest level. Otherwise, nothing else will happen. I mean, the whole country takes its cue from what's happening at the leadership level. If the leadership level is not moving or showing any interest, then the country will reflect that.
you know. And no matter the efforts of NGOs and development partners and so forth, it'll be very difficult to harness the entire country if the leadership is not paying attention to this very important subject matter. So those are just my thoughts. I think we are moving forward definitely this time around, and we all need to, you know, give the attention that this deserves. Turn up early, speak, be passionate about it, and as the leader, the Minister for Community Development stated, you've got to do this at home. You've got to, and as the Prime Minister said, you know, it all starts with us. It all starts with us. And just a word of, well, from my own standpoint, we can't isolate people who are also perpetrators. We spend a lot of time concerned about the victims, and that's true. But we forget that there are perpetrators who also need attention, okay? And speaking from my own experience, I grew up in a very violent atmosphere. And violence was a way of life for people like me, you know, but I changed. And people like this need change, you know. People like this need you to reach out to them. If you are hostile to them, and if you show them no love, if you show them that they're the problem and you don't find a solution to help them, then they will continue to be a problem, you know. So just as my input into this, coming from that background, having grown up, lived in a very violent setting, it took some time, but I changed. People can change, you know, but they need help, they need the assistance of every one of us, and compassion, and through this process, then we can bring about those changes that we desire. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor. It is at this juncture I'd like to introduce the moderator for the panel discussion, Ms. Julie Bukikun, Assistant Resident Representative of the UNDP. Ms. Bukikun will also introduce the speakers who will come up front and take care of the conversation and the deliberations. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you very much, Douglas. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Session 1, Equality Leading the Change. Could you please put your hands together to welcome my esteemed panelists, starting with Honorable Powis Pakop, Governor for NCD. Honorable Alan Bird, Governor for East Sepik. And he needs little introduction, Honorable Minister Justin Tchenko, Minister for Housing and Urban Development, also the member of Mosby South, where this house stands. Thank you very much. Yes, just be careful with the mics. So good morning, panelists. So this morning we're going to have a conversation on equality and what it means to lead the change. You also know that there are some questions that I'll be putting to you. So my job as the moderator is to ask you questions, and I'm also going to do some timekeeping. When you see a red card, it means you have, yellow, it means you have a minute left. And of course, the red means you need to stop so that we keep the discussions going. So I'd like to start by first quoting our Constitution, because it sets the basis for this conference, this summit, and of course the theme, United for Equality. Our first goal of the Constitution reads, every person to be dynamically involved in the process of freeing himself or herself from every form of domination or oppression, so that each man or woman will have the opportunity to develop as a whole person in relationship to others. Furthermore, Section 55 of our Constitution, when it comes to equality of citizens, says, subject to this Constitution, all citizens have the rights, privileges, obligations, and duties, irrespective of race, tribe, place of origin, political opinion, color, creed, religion, or sex. I'd like to now open by asking the first question. As leaders, you both as governors and minister also, what does the Constitution, when it says equality, mean to you? What does it mean in your role when you do your work as governors and also a minister here? I'd like to first introduce or ask Honorable Powis Pakop, Governor for NCD, to respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, and good morning again, everyone. I also want to, Julie, quote also the second goal of our national goals and directive principle. It says equality and participation. We declare our second goal to be for all citizens to have an equal opportunity to participate in and benefit from the development of our country. So, ladies and gentlemen, the founders of our country, our constitution, very clear, very explicit, very definitive about the way forward for our people in our country. Our country, to me, our country, our people, we cannot progress, have prosperity, have success, reach our potential unless we get this foundation right. And the foundation is for everyone to work together, equal opportunity to all of us, men, women, and children, irrespective of our tribal differences or our gender differences or religious or whatever differences. It's now up to us in government, to deliver that, very noble goals of the founders of our country. And it is our responsibility to do this, because otherwise we are failing as a nation, as a people. We will not be able to realize the goals that are important for us and the outcomes that are important for us unless we start to put all this in place. So for me as governor in the last 13 years now, we have been doing our best in our capital city, providing different platforms for our people to have opportunity. We have a focus on young people, but equally we try to support everyone, creating an environment in which people can be able to have that opportunity to progress, realize their dreams. So our program in terms of NCDC is very clear. We have different type of platforms for young people. For example, we have TVWAN. We've invested a lot in TVWAN. Up to now, I think 50 million we have spent. We have programs supporting Dame Carol initiative. We have institutionalized it with the Guinea Guada Business Foundation. We continue to roll that out to support people going into business. We also come up with the Urban Youth Employment Program, trying to also work with international partners to provide platform for young people as well. And we have a program also like Active City Development Program. That's a program that reaches out to those who might have been left behind. Maybe they don't have the educational skill or capacity, or they're slow learners, but we try to be inclusive, keep them in. In terms of positive things too, when I first became governor in 2007, we tried to give equal opportunity to women in our city by appointing all the councillors. And in the city, we, unlike the provinces, we don't have LLG. So the LLG is like discretionary. Sometimes we do it, sometimes we don't. So in 2007, I appointed councillors. And councillors, they were equally between men and women, 50% men, 50% women. That's a project that we tried. We haven't continued it yet, and we can resume it again. But these are the different initiatives that we tried to do in order to enable us to achieve these very noble goals that we have set, the founders of our country have set in our constitution. It talks about equality, equal opportunity for everyone to benefit from the resources and the blessings of our country. This is incumbent on all of us to, deliver. And as I said, if we don't work on this and deliver them, then the project called Papua New Guinea fails. The reason why we put this country together is based on this vision. It's clearly pronounced in the National Goals and Directive Principles. It's also reinforced in the basic rights and freedom provisions of the Constitution. The Constitution of Papua New Guinea is unlike other constitutions of the world, that it doesn't have a Bill of Rights and Freedom in many parts of the world. In Papua New Guinea, it's embedded, consolidated, reaffirmed in our Constitution. And it's incumbent on us to all deliver on it. Otherwise, the project fails. And maybe the project is failing, and that's why certain parts of our country like Bougainville wants to live. Because we are failing to honor those fundamental goals that should be guiding all of us. So I'm very glad that we are here talking about a key part of that fundamental goal, and that is men and women. This is equally our country, equally belong to women and girls. And sadly, we have failed in the 45 years. Parliament is 100% men. In the Provincial Assembly is probably 80% men. In the LLG, probably 95% men. In business, in the administration, in public space, now in cyberspace, men are dominating it. So this is the fundamental problem that we have, that we must have this type of dialogue and conversation so that we solve and we find a way forward so that we can be a real country that can prosper. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, I'd like to now move along to Governor Bird. You heard the perspective of the NCD governor. This is a city, it's got its problems. Can you also share your experience in East Sepik as the governor there in a province? Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. For me, I think we have overprescribed just about everything. If you speak to the lawyers, we have more laws than any other country. And we always seem to think that the solution lies in either amending one law or writing a new one. But I think it's much more basic. We're struggling with how to operationalize these things. We talk about equality. We talk about it being enshrined in the Constitution. But the question is, how do we operationalize it? When I first became governor, I was also trying to understand the relationship between us and the national government. And I've argued consistently on the floor about decentralizing, not so much powers, but responsibilities and resources. Some people like to call it autonomy. I just call it better operations. I see Papua New Guinea like a corporation. You've got one big entity and you've got 22 business units. If you do not empower the business units so that they can deliver results, then of course, as Governor Pakop says, the experiment fails. And so if you look at everything that we want to do, and for 3 years I've tried to understand it, and in essence, we were fortunate when I came in that I was in the opposition and we had a very oppressive government. And because they were oppressive, we began to look for solutions ourselves. It forced us to look for solutions ourselves. We have to look for our own money. In essence, for East Sepik, for instance, we never received a single public investment program funding until this year. And this year we only got 6 million. And even that 6 million we cannot access because the Works Department is looking after it. You see what I mean? And when you hear ministers talk about, oh, we're going to solve the gender-based violence problem, but this department is the one that's going to do it. It's an operationalization issue. For me, I want to take ownership of it at the lower level. And we've tried. I'll give you an example. When we finally raised enough money from our own internal taxes, when I came in as governor, our taxes were 5.6 million. We had to fix that up because national government, if PNC stayed in power, would not give us any money because I was too vocal on issues like corruption and everything else, and I was unwilling to compromise. And when you are unwilling to compromise, they penalize you and penalize your people. You see, this is the culture that we've developed. And in 1975, when we became independent, my Abelam tribe had to surrender its sovereignty to a state that is now unable to function. It functions based on how individuals who are in power feel. That is not good enough. That is not good enough. And so when you talk about the concept of equality, it's about pushing empowerment down. And so we solved the problem. This year we've got 30 million to work with. We've had to expand our tax base 6 times just so we can have the resources. This year was the first time in our history I decided to put, as a government, 300,000 kina to try and empower women to start to take control of their own issues. We had never done that before. But when we realized, we also put down 300,000 kina to get the youth to organize themselves. It was the first time we'd ever done that. We also put down 700,000 kina, again from the taxes of the people of East Sepik, to support the police in their efforts. We had never done that before. And this is all about trying to get the people in the community to have more ownership about their issues so that they can solve it themselves. But we had a problem. Last week in our assembly, our women's rep stood up to say the 300,000 kina was misused by the women themselves. So we come back to another fundamental problem. We have so much bad behavior, not just with the men, but that bad behavior is now being adopted by our women folk as well. Good pla pasin yumi sagat before ya, lol custom na culture bla yumi olsem dame kidu itok ya. We've lost it along the way. We've traded it for some other kind of principles and values, thank you Julie, that we may think are better. And therein lies the challenge and the problem. And therein also lies the solution. When we were dealing with Frida, the leaders in my assembly, many of them less educated than all of you in this room, one of them stood up and said this, Hamamas blomi, mas noken bagarapim sindaun blon naraplaman. Hamamas blomi, my happiness should not result in pain and suffering for someone else. And I think, to me, that is the intrinsic, the best definition I can have for equality. I cannot enjoy myself at the expense of someone else.
Thank you, Governor Isipi. Now, let's move along to Minister Kachenko. You're a minister, at the same time, you're the member for Mosby South. So there may be also challenges, but certainly also aspects that you want to point out that as progress that we can all share. So may I invite you to also share your perspective.
Thank you. Empowering women to the next level is the key. As an example, in an urban electorate, we have many different challenges than a rural electorate and district. But we can do it in a way by empowering the women to put them in charge of social issues, economic issues, and many other issues that can empower them to take the lead and set the pace for them to finally have an opportunity that they've never had before. And that's what we are doing currently in the best electorate called Mosby South, which you're seated here right now. It's all about showing to someone that they can do it, they can be somebody, and they can produce the results like everybody else through training, education, and I'll give an example. Most women, they sell at the markets. They are the driving force of looking after the family when it comes to economic empowerment. So how do we look after these women and embrace them? Well, we build them proper, healthy, safe environments where they can make money and empower themselves and make them bigger and better, which has been done over the last 8 years with Governor Paul Spakop. We can also ensure that they are given the opportunity to have proper education to take themselves to a level where all of us are. And also at the same time, educate our daughters and our sisters so they can be the future generation to also move things forward. It's about giving an opportunity and treating people equally. It's as simple as that. In my electorate, we have mostly women in all senior positions because they make it happen. They make it happen. And they can assist us in many different ways that us males can't, seen at a different perspective. So it's about opportunity and it's about giving a chance. What I see is the true fundamental problem which we really must address to solve gender-based violence, is one, alcohol, drugs in our society, our culture. Our culture is one where still there's so much jealousy out there about a woman being higher than a man. You experience it, you see it every day. Custom work, when it comes to someone that has been belted or been abused, when they go to the police station and say, oh, we'll fix it customary, that's okay, we'll get the families involved, we'll pay some money, and the whole problem is forgotten. That has to stop, because it's not solving the problem, it's making it worse. Empowering the police in our local districts, even though they have the laws, they must be a part of the actual police force in respect to inside the division. At the moment, they're outside. And we're not getting a proper police response or to the criminal acts that are happening to our women and young girls. Just last week, I had 2 young girls in an area of Moresby South that were stabbed and beaten, and lucky they're still alive. Those culprits are husbands and boyfriends that now will go through the police process to be arrested under the laws of this country. But is that enough? Will that stop that offender reoffending again? So the real cause is what I see is alcohol and drugs. That's what gets a male so powerful he can do whatever he likes, and doesn't matter who you are, cause that terrible incidents of violence against our women. If they're not drinking, they're okay. The research shows that 98% of gender-based violence is alcohol-related, and then 50% is not. So we've got a massive challenge, and at the end of the day, you're only as good as your leader and those that surround you. So we've got a massive challenge to resolve the social issues in our community to stop what is happening against our women. And it's not going to happen overnight, but this forum and the coalition, government coalition against violence against women is a fantastic step forward to slow it down or to ensure that we stop it once and for all. The other key thing is educating our children. Our parents and our teachers must be in the curriculum where our children are taught respect, honor, and dignity to one another. In our schools, when our children are growing up, they must always respect each other. Respect our other genders, no matter who they are. That will also assist in ensuring that our children show respect to themselves and each other into the future as well. So we've got to start at the beginning with our kids, and we also have to resolve the social issues in our community. But one big problem, get rid of the alcohol, and I think you've solved 90% of the problems. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. So audience, this event is live streamed, so we'll also have some questions come through. If I receive them, I can also ask the speakers. And I also want to point out that we have a rapporteur for the session, so during this session, we'll be trying to articulate an outcome, which tomorrow will be presented. So at this juncture, I'd like to invite the co-chairs, if you have any reaction, comments, or questions to what we've just discussed. May I invite Dame Carol first?
Thank you. I mean, everything said is spot on, and particularly the last thing about the alcohol and substance abuse. It's critical that we start to deal with this, and perhaps we need, the Narcotics Bureau, it has 2 elements, the criminal elements, and then it has the awareness. Maybe the awareness has to be separated from the criminal and really focus on have something that We'll focus completely on the awareness side and education on responsible use of alcohol, because we'll never get rid of alcohol. There's too much in the economy, but responsible use is critical. And when we live in the community, you see it all the time, irresponsible use of alcohol, and it results in all sorts of violence. And sadly, and of course, equality says women should be able to drink the same as men, and I agree with that. But we never saw women drinking in the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. And now we see women drunk, young girls in the teenage drunk, as well as older women, as well as men. And this exacerbates the problem enormously, because women traditionally didn't drink. I mean, traditionally, I don't mean way, way back, but it wasn't part of their culture to drink for women. So we have to educate everyone, male, female, girl, boy, everyone, on responsible use of alcohol now. Because I think some of the fighting I've seen in community is sometimes females fighting just as much as males. Thank you.
Thank you, Dame Carol. Honorable Juffa, reactions?
Yeah, look, I agree with what everyone here has presented. I especially wanted to just take note of what member for South mentioned. Yes, he's got the best district in the country. He's got a lot of support, a lot of financial support from his governor. That's why. If we all got 240 million a year, we'd be very happy. We could do a lot. We'd convert all these districts into brilliant districts. I just touching on what Minister Tshichenko was speaking about, I wanted to talk a little bit about education. I think that's really the key here, that we are not paying enough attention to this space. The education minister is not here. However, I'm happy to see that in the education ministry, they are making an effort to develop curriculum for teaching children honor, respect, dignity, etc. And that's wonderful to see. From our own examples back in my province, we had a very interesting development that we've been taking note of, and that's the early childhood learning centers. We've got a couple of these in the province, and the children coming out of them, because there's a lot of attention paid to these children at a very early age. They're coming out to be, you can see that they're going to be really good citizens. They're the top of the class in all the schools when they come out through the system. And I think that's where we really need to get in that space. The child's learning starts from the last trimester of birth up until 7 years. During that period, that's the programmable period. That's when you can get in and program that child so that they can be a positive, productive, respectful citizen. And I don't think we're paying enough attention to that area. That's for the long term. That's going to take generations. Then the other effort that I think we need to undertake is teaching parents to be parents, in our cultural, traditional setting, our parents were grandparents, really. They raised us. And they already had the benefit of cultural education. We've lost our cultural education. We've now embraced a new world, a Western world. And a lot of our cultural education that used to teach us these values, this respect for one another, for our women, that's been done away with. What's filling in that gap, and where are we going now? So I honestly think that we have to focus on the education space. Law enforcement, as Minister Tshichenko mentioned as well, a lot of these matters that ought to be attended to are either just resolved at the police station, compensation is paid, and nothing is done about it. And sometimes, as Minister Wakagoi mentioned, it's usually because the women involved take the step to withdraw because they're considerate of their family, their children, their well-being, and their family's well-being. How do we address that? Those are some issues I think we really need to think about and pay some serious attention to. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Juffa. So just now to add on, we spoke a lot about violence against women, but I want to touch on violence against children as well. And I leave it open to our three speakers if any one of you would like to speak on that. The link between gender-based violence, of course, talking about women, but the issues affecting children. Perhaps I'd like to ask Governor Pakop to first make some remarks on that, and then I'll invite the other two. Thank you.
Julie, thank you. I just want to say in terms of violence against children that the prevalence is getting out of hand. I know it's getting out of hand here in Port Moresby. There's not enough work done on it, and it's being perpetrated by relatives, by close, family people, and that's why it's suppressed and they hide it and out of shame and so on. But it's as worse or probably worse than gender-based violence in terms of perpetration of violence against women and girls. So we've got to move also in that direction seriously. But coming back to the point I want to say is that, getting the fundamentals right. And the fundamental is this, that we have lost the values that guide us. We've lost the vision that guide us. We've lost the goalposts. That's why we are going all over the place and subjecting to low values, low behavior, low activity, low habits. We are resorting to violence. Violence is a character of low vision and low, values system that we have subscribed to. We have just said it, that, the values, our cultural values that hold us to high standard, we've lost it. Where are we now? This is the fundamental problem. That's why it's important that we come back to the Constitution and try to promote values that are important. And equality is most fundamental to ending, gender-based violence. It's important to give good, positive values to our people. Violence, against women and girls and against children, it's not just victimizing and, really holding back women and girls and children, but it's making men to become, we become dehumanized. We become men of lesser value, lesser quality. And so everything drops. The leadership in our values and vision drops, the outcomes drops, the behavior drops, everything drops, our nation fails. This is why it's important for us to push this agenda, that we need to promote the fundamentals that was the beginning of our country, what the vision and dream was. And it's about equality. Men and women working together, realizing our full potential, our energy, our skills, our abilities, and we will arrive there. But apart from, equality, the real values that should be fundamental to getting us there. And I am emphasizing this because when I see PNG, we're so rich in abundance of resources and potential and so on, but we're still failing 45 years on. And then I look at countries like Japan and like Singapore, they've got nothing. But what drives them? Values. They've got important goals. They set milestones. Their leaders and their people rise up to those milestones to achieve great outcomes because they probably have nothing, and so they harness the values and get them there. Papua New Guinea, we're losing it because we're taking things for granted, that we are a rich nation, everything is there, just a flick of a finger, it will happen, happen, happen. Money is the dictating everything. The resources, we want to just grab this, grab this, grab this, and we leaders too, grab this, I'll get more share, more share. What are you going to use this money for? What is it about? Now, I just want to put us on the spot. You all look at New Zealand now. What's her name? Jacinda Ardern been the Prime Minister for a number of years now. Guess what? She got another term. But not only that, but the Labour Party for the first time is a majority one-party government in New Zealand. Because they saw the potential of this woman, how she can run the country, be equitable to all the people, be able to drive the agendas that are important about human rights, about the economy, about welfare of the people, the fundamentals, getting it right. So she's been rewarded with another term, not only just another term, but the Labour Party has got a single party government for the first time. That's the potential of women. That's what we can harness in our country if we get back to the fundamentals. So coming back to your question, Julie, it's the fundamentals. We are getting it wrong because parents don't know what their fundamental role is. We're supposed to be champions. We're supposed to, show, the goodness and wellness to our children, to raise them to become heroes, to look after their families, their community, their country. We are failing that. That's why we are going nowhere and going down. So, you know, I'm really want us to get back to the fundamentals and get it right. How to actualize, you know, put it into action? Hey, let's just start with in Parliament. What's wrong with the reserved seat? I know people have a conversation here and there. But we must show that there is a potential in a woman, and then we start to get the values right again. In NCDC, city manager is here. City manager is a man. But below him, they are all women. The financial controller is a woman. The deputy city manager is a woman. Our PLO is a woman. You know what? They're the ones who do the job. City manager will subscribe to this. Coming to this conference, I've got an A team of women who are getting together, working with men, of course, but they are leading and they assemble you all to come here. That is the potential. That is what we've got to get right. We got it wrong, so we are going all over the place, subscribing to violence and corruption and all these things. We got the fundamental wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Paco. Governor for NCD. Now, Governor, you then went into the next topic that I wanted to introduce, so thank you very much. I'll go into it. For our audience, and of course our country and those who are listening in or also viewing, we know that women's empowerment is very key and important. And also we've seen that where we empower women, we can also break the cycle of violence. Now, there are many levels of leadership and also participation of women that we speak about. But I'd just like to put forward now that in PNG's 45 years history, my panelists and audience, only 7 women have ever been elected to the National Parliament. In 2017, national elections, we all know no woman was elected. Now, this is despite the highest number ever, 179 female candidates contesting. This was the highest. And compared, it was 5% of the total number of candidates. 2017 elections had 3,340 candidates, so that was only 5%. Now, you've already started off giving your perspective, so I'd like to then move on to Governor for East Sepik. On the provincial level, looking at women's empowerment, please share your perspective. How do you see empowering women and also that as a form of addressing social issues, including not only violence against women, but also children? Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. I think before I answer that, I just wanted to speak to the violence against children aspect first, and I'll be short and then I'll come to this one. How many of you in your 50s were belted by your teachers in school? Hands up. I was too. It fixed me up. We have, you know, and we used to fight a lot, but we used to fight with our fists. Today I see young civics fighting with bush knives. That's why we call them merryman. Because in my days, we did it with the fist. And the teachers would smack us in the classroom. Today, teachers don't smack anyone. And look at the society we've got. I'm not saying violence is a good thing, but I think violence has its uses. We should be putting some of our criminals to death in this country, but we're not. So I think we have to measure that and see it in the proper perspective. Something has gone wrong, and we've got to find out what that is and fix it. Coming back to the issue of women in politics, I was the person on the Vision 2050 task force that pushed for the special seats for women in 2009. But having said that, you know, in my 3 years in Parliament, there were many times when I thought of just throwing in the towel and leaving because of how difficult it is to do things in there. And the level of corruption and the level of self-interest and everything else that sort of goes on, not just on the floor, but within public service in general. It is a really corrupt, broken environment, and I struggle with it. And I'm surprised that women want to get in there and try and fix it. Seriously. Seriously. It is not like in other countries where you can get, you know, good people in to do things. The number of good people trying to do things is very, very small. You throw women in there, and I think you're still going to be having this conversation. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying, let's recognize the environment that we are working in. We are one of the most corrupt countries on earth by measurement, by data. But let me say this. I was elected, the majority of my voters were women. They were women. When I stand up on the floor of that house, I feel that I represent CPIC women more than CPIC men. I got elected in a province full of kaikaiman. Kaikaiman is our term for corrupt people who steal. The kaikaiman didn't want me to be elected because they knew I would put a stop to it. Guess who are my most important voters? The women. I was elected by the CPIC women. And I represent them on the floor, regardless of my own gender. I have spoken on women's issues more on this floor of parliament in the last 3 years than I think any other member of parliament. That is because, for me, I represent everybody in my province, including and most especially the women and the girls. Another point I want to make is this. This coalition is actually driven by male members of parliament, and I want you all to recognize that. We had 3 women in parliament in the last term. Did they stand out and represent women's issues? I never saw it. You have 20 male members of parliament who recognize the importance and value of the women, and that is why you have this summit. And I want to assure the women and the girls in this room and those who are outside, we are here to stand by you, to fight for your rights, to ensure you have a fair and equitable chance at the resources and the prosperity of this country for you. Sorry, that's a political speech. 2022 is coming.
Thank you, Governor.
I want to say something.
I think I'll just, maybe to Minister Kachenko first, and then back to Honorable Pakop.
When it comes to women in politics, this champion woman, Dame Carol, got it on her own right. Elected on her own right, against all the men, against everybody. But a good example of balancing the equation is the Motokoitabel Assembly that Dame also put forward. Daddy Toka Jr., the chairman, is now implementing, where you have 2 women's representatives from East and West. And that seems to be working. That seems to be working well. So a similar model to that on the national level should be looked at. But for the women, I would stand up and be counted and challenge the men out there in the national election. I'd still go out there and put yourself forward as a woman that wants to make a change and wants to make a difference. I don't believe in giving a handout mentality to the women and just say, this is your seat. I think you can still do it, but you need support and you need backing. Maybe through the political parties. The political party system to be reformed and changed and strengthened to put more women as candidates from political parties to enhance them and to support them. There's many different scenarios that can be put in place to make that happen. But we've seen a success with Motokoitabel Assembly, and I'm sure that could be also utilized as a model for other district offices or local level governments or whatever. But I think the women need to be empowered more politically and supported more through the political party system to stand amongst equals, we're all the same, and put out there what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And I think time will tell. Time will tell. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Governor Pakop, would you like to add on?
I have a lot to say.
Okay. 5 minutes.
I have a lot to say because I think, with due respect, my co-chair and governor, the reality in our country is this. You probably must agree with me. The playing field is not equal, Minister, with due respect. The playing field is not equal. First, you man think the women cannot do it. They cannot be leaders. Then we keep the money, the account, and they get nothing.
And then, all these other barriers, you go on them. The political party, we will not select women because you by win or not. You won't bring me the numbers. We need numbers to form government, to become prime minister and so on. So will the parties really, for real, you are going to select women and go and win the election? And you may walk like Yamania. We are not being realistic. And if we talk about corruption, due respect, my brother governor, if we talk about corruption and we are saying that women, why you want to come and, be part of this corruption? But who has perpetrated this corruption? 45 years, it's men. Men has run this country, and they're probably running this country down. Yeah. So that's why we have the reserve seat, because you blow money, you blow go to nothing. Lo motu mi blow to koi diga digaya, you blow man. So you all want to be Thomas. So let's do it. Create the reserve seat so the women can go there to represent women, not to represent the entire community constituency like Dame Carol and Delilah and Lojaya, and they went there to represent everybody. We can't expect them to just talk about women. They have to represent everybody. So let's do the right thing. Let the women go out there and show their potential as women. And then maybe you blow man Thomas, you blow by science. You blow go to nothing, you blow go to nothing. So I'll drive the point home. If you have not seen it, or not read it, or not heard it, you all go and see Google now to see the small country of Rwanda. That's where we should get the example and get the inspiration from. This country in the 90s, latest 1999, was subject to horrific violence, genocide. Million people die. But now they are the pearl of the Pacific, the Africa. And what is the equation? Nearly half the parliamentarians are women, half the cabinet are women, and they're making it happen. That's the key we should get. So meeting Yumi Man, we are just giving excuse. Everybody is ready for it. We are the ones who are giving excuse and not making it happen, so we're coming up with kind of excuse. Let's do it. If we are not happy, let's put a sunset clause, but it is happening in NCDC. Minister, you forgot? In NCDC, we got, 2 seats for women. It's working in NCDC. It's working in Motukoida. Our minister from DPI, from Bougainville, she's here. In Bougainville, the constitution says women must have a seat, and then they also compete in the open seat. So now there are a number of women in Bougainville, and I can see Bougainville will take off. Rest of Papua New Guinea, you'll be left behind. Yeah. So let's try it and see what is happening. Of course, we can have a sunset clause. If you all men are, insecure and worry, let's make it 5 years or make it 10 years or something like that. Right? So I'm for reserve seat, so we can make it happen.
Thank you very much,
Julie,
Governor Fako. Governor Bird?
Can I also say
1
that?
minute? Yes.
Can I also say that if it came on the floor for reserve seats for women, I'll be the first one to vote for it.
Yes. Thank you. And Faso? Now, we can't go past this without asking Dame Carol. We all know you've led this work for many, many years. A lot of us in this room have also been with you in your time in government, in your time in the National Parliament. You've heard the panelists. I would be really happy to hear your feedback or your perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the strong supporters here too. There are things for and against reserve seats. We all know that. But there's things for and against almost anything in life. Now, Section 50 of our Constitution talks about equal opportunity for women. And we do know we have equal opportunity, but the issue has been brought out here. Do they have equal opportunity to win? And we know the answer to that. We've had 45 years to look for the answer to that. They have equal opportunity under our Constitution. We have a brilliant Constitution. It gives me goosebumps. And there's equal opportunity, but you have to add the extra. Is there equal opportunity to win? And experience over 45 years has shown us no. Now, Motukoita, my dream is in the Motukoita, and I know the chairman knows that this is what I feel. I want to see the women winning the open seats too. At present, unfortunately, I think the mentality in the Motukoita communities is the women have their seats. And the women actually, in some meetings I had with them, they liked that. They said, we don't want to have to represent all the men. because then we'll have men demanding things from us as well as women demanding things from us. And it's already hard enough when the women want things. But I want to see, and I keep encouraging, and it keeps happening, the women standing for the normal seats too. And later, maybe there'll be no need for those 2 seats that are in the Motukweta Act. We know it has happened. We know that in Bougainville, yes, they have the special reserve seats, but 2 times now, women have won in the open seats as well. And that will continue. So I think there's no doubt it is needed as an interim measure. Because to have a parliament with no women on the floor, it defies everything in our constitution. It defies everything in the global conventions that we have become signatories to, signed off by male ministers, right? CEDAW and all these things, male ministers signed them. They are legally binding conventions. Our Pacific Island Forum leaders, in 2010, I think it was, they made one of their recommendations that we have to look at special measures to make sure that women get into Parliament and into politics. Here, of course, and I'll shut up very soon, sorry, Julie. Our organic law, local level, we now have these special provisions in rural areas, rural wards for 2 women. And we've got to stop this nonsense about, oh, nominated women can't be equal. We've got to stop that nonsense. If they're there as councillors, they are equal. Urban areas, 1 woman. We've started it, and the government has legislated started at the local level. So we have to move it up. And it will become the norm. The one issue is that traditionally women were very powerful, but in the private sphere. Men were seen as the ones in the public sphere. But if you dig into it, who's made the decisions? Behind the scenes, almost always, the women would have been very influential, sitting in the house, in the clan, making the decision, but she does not take it into the public sphere. The men were the orators. So there's a mindset change that is needed, that it's quite acceptable for women to be orators. And can I say something that I probably shouldn't say in the live stream, but I will say it. You know, when I was working solidly, and I didn't do the work, it was all the women's organisations, it was many men on the floor, like Honourable Powers Parkop, always out there at the front fighting these things. You know what some of my colleagues, and I love them all, some of my colleagues said to me, oh, Carol, we don't mind you being here, but we don't want our own women here. Reflect on that. Reflect on that. Why? You know, why? Maybe em got fright, Maybe they're scared of their own women. Me no sabe. You must ting along this fella something, Mama Kania. Okay.
Thank you very much, Dame Carol.
Julie, I just want to say something.
Yes, Governor.
Short one, very short.
Yes.
I just want to say something for us to, really reflect on. In the world today, there's only 3 countries without women in the parliament.
Correct.
They're in the Pacific. There's PNG, I think Solomon, and Federal State of Micronesia.
I think Solomon's
Even
okay.
Afghanistan's got women in parliament. Even Yemeni, which used to be part of PNG, no women in parliament, has got women in parliament. It's an embarrassment and failure on the part of our country that women cannot make it to parliament. That's how the measure of how far we've come 45 years. So I just want to add that on, that it reflects really on our country. We are still discussing this type of basic issues. We have not made progress. Women have not advanced, as much as men. And perhaps that's part of the failure of our country.
Yeah, and it's actually, Solomons have now got someone just fairly recently, but Vanuatu is the 3rd one.
No, Vanuatu,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
My apologies to our friends,
and we used to be called the Dirty
Solomon.
Dozen. And globally, we used to be called, we were part of the Dirty Dozen at the bottom. The Dirty Dozen was the way we were described.
Julia, our equality index, we are 161 out of 162. That's another embarrassment on our part.
Yes. Thank you very much. Now, we also need to get a perspective from you, Co-Chair, Honourable Juffa.
Thank you.
Comments?
Yes, in 2017, when I came into Parliament, I was very sad to see that there were no women in our Parliament. I had just watched a TV show where there was a debate in I think it was in Australia. About 40–50% of Australia, the Parliament is women. You know, and that's the same case in just about most parliaments around the world. You know, I used to be a proponent of women have to, if we're truly a democratic country, then getting into parliament, you have to go through that democratic process. And if we are to create seats for women, then actually we are suspending an aspect of democracy to achieve this. And is that technically correct if we are subscribing to pure democracy? This was how I used to think, because I'm a great critic of democracy, you know. I think the current form of it that we see is not true democracy. It's just an effigy paraded by the corporate world and helping us believe that, you know, we're actually democratic when in reality we're not. But democracy works in a country where democratic principles function everywhere you care to look. And that doesn't happen in Papua New Guinea. Every election, violence becomes far worse than the previous. There are more deaths, there are more instances of violence, and it becomes harder and harder, not just for women, but for good people to stand for election. It becomes very hard. A good person by nature doesn't put themselves out there. They're not chest beating and talking about themselves. So, you know, a good person by nature will already be discouraged from standing for election. And then you throw this into the mix, where today, you know, our elections are driven by lamb flaps and beer. That's true, in most cases. And violence, threat, intimidation. Women can't get out there in an environment like this to campaign, you know. They are threatened. You come here, we'll kill you, we'll rape you. This is what they're told. So how are they going to stand for election in this type of environment? And that's when I changed my mind and I thought, well, you know what? Let's have these reserved seats. You know. Let's have these reserved seats. And I've spoken to Governor Parkop, and I like listening to Governor Parkop, so please talk when you have the opportunity. You know, you always have things that are thought-provoking to say, and we appreciate that. We will support you. You know, this comes to Parliament, we will support you because as a nation, we are taking a journey to arrive at the perfect democracy we want. You know, we're only 45 years old as a nation. Great Britain allowed their women to vote after 1,000 years of being a democracy. Remember this. In America, they just allowed women to vote in the 1960s and 70s, you know. And there were many other things that were happening there that were discriminatory, not just against women, but against people of color, like ourselves, you know. When I listen to people talk of Rwanda, which is an amazing example, they're becoming the Singapore of Africa. And then you think of Singapore itself, which was just a little tiny swamp. They didn't even have water. They had to import their water from Malaysia. You know, but today they're the tiger economy of Asia. They lend money to entire countries. Well, what did they get right? Well, the fact of the matter is they controlled their progress to democracy. They controlled environments. And they said, okay, well, here's the West telling us that we must be purely democratic in every sense of the word, but we also understand that we came from different cultures, that it's going to take time to get there, so therefore we must control our ascension into democracy. And I think that's something we really should consider, you know, because we're trying to have our cake and eat it too, so to speak, you know. We're saying we're purely democratic, but then the reality out there is far from that, you know. So these are just some thoughts I thought I'd share with you. I honestly believe that, you know, we are in great need of our women in this space, in the decision-making space. If you look at how humanity is also progressing, we are moving away from a time when men were very much needed. In our society in the last, you know, prior to Christians and colonization and so forth, you needed men to physically protect the clan and the tribe. Without them, well, they'd be eaten. They wouldn't exist. So that's why men were very much needed. Well, is that needed today? Well, today we need the other form of power, the soft power that Dame Carol Kidu described, probably the real power, the power behind the scenes. A lot of men know what I'm talking about. Who really calls the shots? You know. So these are just some thoughts that I thought I would share. We have to work towards a country where we can provide a transparent, safe, free atmosphere for all candidates, so that we can then draw the type of candidates that we want, who we can then call leaders in Parliament. then we can be satisfied that we are moving in the right direction. And we will move in the right direction when we start electing more leaders and politicians into parliament. There's a difference. We have politicians, leaders, and pets in parliament. That's what I like to say. Some pets, you follow the leash and you'll find who really owns them. You know, some logging company or something. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor Jufa. Now we'll need to bring this together now. Session 1, Equality Leading the Change. Panelists, co-chairs, what do you think is required to turn the tide? We talked, we gave opinions, we gave views. Now what do you think is the one thing that the national government could do to dramatically, the word is dramatically, reduce gender-based violence, increase equality for our people, and empower our women? Can I please start with Minister Kachenko?
I think I've already said it, but one is to give the women a voice to be heard and to have fair representative on the floor of Parliament. That is one area that will then allow equal understanding and distribution of our women so that they can actually be seen, heard, and felt on the floor of Parliament and outside that into the areas to represent women for this great country. So yes, I agree with our governors here that women's representatives on the floor of Parliament and in politics will make a huge difference for our women now and into the future. That's definitely number one. On the local scene, district scene, we've got so many issues that need to be changed so that women are not belted, are not abused. And I've said very clearly, alcohol-related, drug-related, also our laws and regulations need to be enforced, not talked about, but enforced and changed, and put new legislation in place that can strengthen the police and their activities to charge and make examples of those that commit crimes. I think too many people are getting away with it. The recent jailing of the judge ruled down of 10 years against one perpetrator was the first time in history we've heard that actually happen, where a criminal has been found guilty of his crimes when it comes to gender-based violence. It's now setting a good precedent. So the judicial system is not mucking around, which is fantastic. The laws are there and they're being implemented. It's just for the police to be empowered to get that evidence across so that it can be implemented and right to the end, which is very, very important. So it's a mixture of things that can make our women more powerful and also more exposed and more important. And also there's the gender-based violence, which it all comes down to us as leaders individually in our own electorates, how we look after our women, how we support them in our communities, how we also empower them to get out there and take responsibilities, and also for us to do awareness. For example, we've just registered 240 women's associations throughout Moresby South, which have a total of 22,000 women membership in those associations, from Motokoitabo to our settlements to our urban areas. Now we're using those associations with our women to take forward all the different issues that we're now talking about today, because we're empowering them to make decisions themselves, not a dictatorship, but themselves making the decisions for the benefit of their community and women as a whole in the local level. So there's many ways of doing this, but it's going to be a long effort. It's not going to happen overnight, But with all of us working together now in partnership of what the governor, the governors, and especially Paul Sparkop has now initiated to take this forward for the benefit of our women, we can only go forward. We can never look back, and we can only strengthen our resolve to ensure women participate equally and are equals amongst all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Governor Bird?
Certainly. I think 22 women in parliament are, leveling the playing field. We don't know what that's going to look like. And we certainly cannot continue doing the same thing we've been doing for 45 years and expect different results. So if my fellow parliamentarians are listening, let's give 22 women a go in special seats and let's see how that works. The second thing I'd like to see, how do we solve these, not just gender-based violence, but violence in general issues? I think the mechanisms of justice need to move a lot quicker. It's no good when, in the first instance, no one gets arrested. It takes a long time to grab a perpetrator, incarcerate them, take them to court, prosecute them, and then permanently punish them or rehabilitate them or whatever. It just takes too long. And it's not just for violence cases. Corruption cases are the same thing. They take too long. And I think we've got to look at a strategy that starts off by strengthening enforcement. I'll give you an example. We've had a lot of violence in ECP going on for a number of years, and as soon as we had 30 riot policemen land in ECP, it dramatically dropped the incidences of violence in just 2 weeks. People knew there was increased police presence, the police were driving around, and so they just stopped doing all the naughty things they used to do. And as I look at that, and I think as soon as we move the police out, well, all the mice are going to come out and play again. So I think we really need to beef up the police force, support them in all the things they need. And I'll give you another example. ECP never had a family sexual violence unit. As we started to talk about, and we had we were working mostly with young people to try to reduce the violence, not just violence against women and girls, but violence generally. And as that started to take place in CIPIC, the police themselves, for the first time in our history, set up a family sexual violence unit in Wewak, and they set up another one in Maprik. And I was very impressed with it, and they just did that this year, their own initiative. And so we've committed to fund that unit. The provincial government is going to fund that unit for next year. And this is the thing. I think there are many, many good people in Papua New Guinea that want to make a difference. We just have to create spaces and allow them to come out and do what they can do. But all along that chain of justice, we must make sure, first of all, that these pathways exist, they're robust, and that if anyone perpetrates violence, especially against women and girls, they should be grabbed within a couple of hours, they should be locked up, the investigation should be speedily done, they should stand up in front of a court. All these things should happen within a month, and they should be convicted and put away. Only when we know that there's a cost to pay for your bad behavior, whatever that bad behavior is, but especially violent behavior against women and girls, that's when I think the change of attitude is going to be forced upon us. Like Governor Jufa said, some of these things we're not good at doing. You know, we're not good at electing women into parliament. It's so difficult anyway. We're not good at dealing with violence and violence against women and so on and so forth. So let's change that. Let's create pathways that will just nip this thing in the bud and empower all the agencies that need to do that. And most of all, us members of parliament should not interfere when these processes are on foot.
Thank you, Governor. Governor Pakop, leading the change. We've seen you as the governor for NCD, leading in NCD. We've seen your work. We've seen how you have worked with your commission, the National Capital District Commission. We've seen how you've connected the people of NCD. What would be your key message to other leaders and, of course, everyone else listening in?
Well, my key message is that we're supposed to be leaders and we must lead. Time for us to stand up and lead. And we are all men in parliament, but we are voted equally by men and women. We represent women as well, so we must speak on behalf of women in the parliament. Huh? And the reality in our country is that, you know, there's so much barriers stuck against women of our country. They cannot realize their full potential. So it's up to us to be leaders. And so we must stand up and make the right decision. So, you know, coming back to the fundamental question that you raised earlier on, what is it that we need to do? Of course, we need to get the reserve seat up and running. Let's do it. All the men in parliament, 100 and how many of us, let's do it. Because if you all are complaining about corruption, now the women who were there in parliament, Dame Carol M. Stab, late Naharuni, Laujaya and Delilah, during their term in parliament, any allegation against corruption in Golongolo, no? No, right? All the allegation against people are man. So, you know, it's no brainer already. And they performed very well. Now, Rooney, she's renowned for that, you know, that deportation case. But guess what? She made the decision, and Burikidu became the Chief Justice of Papua New Guinea, and the rest is history. They were champions. They set the foundation for the judiciary in our country. Did it take a man to do it? No. One blood Miriam walk him. So the potential is there. So the leaders of today, we got to make the right decision, and you know, the playing field is not equal. So we got to be leaders. Let's lead. Let's lead our country and our people and make the right decision. And the right decision is to support the reserve seats. If we are not, you know, comfortable with it, that it might go on too long and so on, let's have a sunset clause. But we must make the right decision. The other right decision we've got to make, Julie and everyone, is that we've got to, you know, actionize the strategic plan on gender-based violence. Because violence is a big impediment, big barrier to women, not just to get into parliament, but to be enabled them to live their dreams. Here in Port Moresby, they get on the PMV, we arrest them. They get to market, we arrest them. Go to school, we arrest them. In workplace too, we arrest them. How can we realize and harness the potential of women in our country? Because of gender-based violence. So we got to allocate the resources. Minister, you come to talk stuff, me I'm you, but you know some support. We got to allocate the resources and energize the secretariat and get the strategic plan that's already been adopted by NEC. Have it up and running so that all these barriers that, you know, we say is up against women, maybe we can start to break it down so that maybe in 20 years' time or 30 years' time, or the equal playing field will be equal, and then everybody can contest together, because men by the time can see women can be prime ministers too, ministers too, and can make it happen for our country. Otherwise, Julie, final point, my sisters, if the men don't do it, stop organizing and stop, you know, complaining and organize. And you have numbers. We've seen it in 2012. One of my our colleague governors, you know, he was a big impediment to the reserve seat. We lost by only 6 seats. Guess what? He's not in parliament. Guess why? Because all the women in the province gang up and vote out. Let's do the right thing.
Thank you, Governor Paco.
Governor Mtokia, he got in by power of women. They elected him. So it can happen too.
Thank you very much. Now, we're coming to a close now. Before I ask the co-chairs to make final remarks, I'd just like to now open. I'm looking at the MC for Q&A, question and answer. How much time do we have? No got time. Okay. Sorry, everyone. Indeed, a very dynamic panel, but no time. I do hear that there is a presentation to be made now. So if we can do that, and then we'll have closing remarks. Thank you.
Oh, good, thank you. I thought you were going to close us off. Can we say something? Yeah. You're asking one thing that can change the history on this whole issue?
Sure.
We're taking part in it now, right?
Yes.
20 men on the floor of Parliament have formed this group to address this issue. Now they must work out, well, how do we increase our numbers? How do we address the vertical disconnect in this country? Do we take it to the Governors' Conference? And does every district MP here make sure they take it to their DDA discussions, take it to their LLG discussions, address the vertical disconnect, and it can be done by the power of starting from those 20 people. Yes. It's right now, yeah. Thank you, inspiring.
Thank you,
and
Governor.
Remember, the answer lies within Papua New Guinea. The answers lie within Papua New Guinea. You've got to do this yourself. We need our friends from overseas. We need our development partners, but the answers lie within. Right?
Then can I invite you for your final remarks, Governor?
I think I totally agree with Dame Kidu and Governor Pakop and the rest of the panel here. We need to not just talk about it, but do it. And I think we have to, if we are to take a leaf out of, say, Rwanda and Singapore's book, they didn't go and consult and debate and discuss. They just went and did what they're doing so that they are where they are right now, you know. And that's what we need to do with this situation here. I honestly think that at the political level, all provinces, all districts should have this plan in place. Mm-hmm. And then we've got, and it should be a must. You know, it should be endorsed by this government. We're government. If we're government, then we should say this must be enforced. All provinces, all districts must have this plan and roll it out. Then at the ministry level, we've got the minister here, and I think Department of Personal Management, they ought to be here as well, but at every government department level, every state-owned enterprise, every discipline force, this plan should be reflected as a policy. And it should be a must. And it should be driven by an organization, maybe this committee, or maybe a ministry, but it should be driven by an organization so that, you know, we tick the boxes and ensure that within a time frame, everyone's on board and makes it happen, you know. What we ought to also focus on is creating a transparent, safe, secure environment so that our women can stand for election without intimidation, without threats, you know, without the threat of violence. And whilst that's happening, these 20 seats are necessary. With as Governor Pakop suggested, perhaps a sunset clause. You know, and we put the sunset clause should state, when we have arrived at a place where we can say with great satisfaction and confidence that the atmosphere, the environment is now safe for anyone to stand for elections, then we can say, okay, these 22 seats, we don't need them anymore, reserved seats. But until then, you know, we should have some means by which we can measure and see, and then when we arrive at that destination, these seats should be, you know, a must, in my opinion. Thank you.
Julie, can I just say something? As of last year, ECP started having 6 export vessels a year going overseas. Prior to last year, all our exports, we didn't have enough. They were going out of Madang and Leh. The biggest group of business people in my province are women. The biggest group. CPIC women are trading to the extent that when we get fresh meat, chicken and all these things from Leh on Sunday, by Wednesday, all the shops are empty. Every single thing is sold out. That is how much economic activity is going on in East Sepik because women are entering into business and doing better than our men. They're doing better than our men. To me, development is about empowerment of the individual and the family, financial empowerment. I am seeing it in my province. I am seeing it in my province because the women are taking the lead. They may not win seats in elections, but I can tell you that in my province, they hold the economic heartbeat of my province. Because of that, I really don't care what happens at the national level to protect women, but in my province, my personal commitment and the commitment of the Provincial Assembly in ECPIC is that we will do everything we can to protect our women and girls in our province. And that's our commitment.
Thank you very much. I will pull this to a close now. Please put your hands together. Before we move to the hands together for the co-chairs. Dame Carol Kidu, Honorable Gary Jufa, Governor for Oro, my esteemed panelists, Governor for NCD, Honorable Powes Paco, Governor for ECPIC, and of course, Minister Kachenko. Thank you very much. So I believe there's a presentation now. Governor, could you remain here? Governor Paco, could you come? Yeah, could you remain here, please? And the city manager, please. Thank you.
Well, can we thank Julie Buki-Kun as well, an excellent moderator. There you go. Thank you, Julie. All right. As Julie's mentioned that the Honourable Governor for the NCD has a special announcement to make. He's also assisted by the city manager. And up the front there you can see Port Moresby's top cop, NCD Metropolitan Superintendent Pero Drano. Thank you so much. Yes. And they are in a deep conversation, aren't they? Yes. Strategizing as to how to go forward from here. Very good. Thank you so much. Please thank the Governor for NCD, Honorable Paul Parker. Thank you.
Thank you, Douglas. Thank you, everyone. At this juncture, we want to make a presentation to the police. But let me say this: we can't just come here and talk. We got to walk the talk and make it happen. Break down barriers. NCDC this year we have supported the police in terms of providing fuel support to all the police. The three districts, they've all fully been supported to make sure that the police, at least at the fuel level, they don't have an excuse. NCDC is paying for all your fuel. They should go out there and respond to all the complaints that come. But today, we are going one step further, and we've got a donation of 260,000 to the Family Sexual Violence Unit to do e-policing. Later on today, we will divide it into, the sessions will divide into the response, right? Prevention and response. Now the response capacity in the city, police minister is not here, commissioner of police is not here, but it's broken down. Survivors of family sexual violence or gender-based violence, they've been traumatized, suffered, a lot of pain, but the system also gives them further pain and trauma. The system is broken down. So here today, this is to support our Family Sexual Violence Unit so that they get into e-policing, they can manage the system better. They've got a digital age, they get into digital age, so everything is computerized. They say the data, they can prepare the files quickly, get into the police, get into the court, and there can be prosecution and conviction, so that the perpetrators, by prosecution and conviction, they are changing too. So I'll pass it over to our Metsup, who's here to receive the check. You can explain this e-policing much better than I would.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, ministers. Thank you, stakeholders, everyone. Let me once again thank you, the city authorities, for continuing to assist us. As he stated, police job is very, very difficult. We are at a stage of, I use the word, my way, it cannot be quoted again, is defunct. It's dysfunctional. We need to upgrade our system. The current performance you see of police reflect over many years of neglect. And I can only point to you on the current, the latest report made by Deloitte. We're not getting that share. We're supposed to be getting about $3 billion a year to run this organization effectively. We're not getting that. Hence, you see what it is on the ground, and I get a blame every time in the city that I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. It's only a reflection of you, the authorities, the people. We can only be good in what is invested in the constabulary, especially in the city police. Once again, this system was designed by a local company that when I came into the city, I wanted to change our performance, especially dealing with family sexual violence, or in other words, gender-based violence. With the design, it can increase the capacity of our members in FSVU. Currently, we can only, for a police officer, can only process one case per day. If you go to Boroko and other police stations, you see women and children and men are lining up to access family sexual violence unit. With the system now, instead of one, an officer can complete 4 cases a day. That is where we're trying to get assistance from. And thank you once again, on behalf of the police commissioner, my divisional commander, and our team in NCD. Thank you, Governor, and your people for presenting this check to us. Thank you.
So before I end the check over, I just want to say 3 other things. One, in the city, we have about 20,000 cases family sexual violence or GVB every month. 20,000. So big challenge in our capital city. This is where Papua New Guinea is defined. All the tribes and all the provinces, and they come to Port Moresby. So we got to get it right in Port Moresby for the rest of the country to get it right. Second thing I want to say in this respect is that I want it to be a resolution of us, and we all members of parliament take it up to parliament. You all in cabinet take it to cabinet. FS Family Sexual Violence Unit is not a formal part of the police force. It's just an ancillary or side or array system. So the policemen and women who are working there, they've sacrificed all their entitlements. They are not really full part and parcel of the police force. So we've got to get it right. We've got to get a system in the police force right from the top coming down to align the Family Sexual Violence Unit so that they do their work to high standard. Final thing I wanted to say is this: Governor, thank you. My co-chair, member for Ijivitari, thank you. But this is what we also want us to do here going forward after this summit. Even if token, if you can go up to 1 million, but even if you go down to 20,000 or 50,000, like member for Ijivitari, Vice Minister for Direct Foreign Investment, Vice Minister assisting the Prime Minister, Honorable Richard Masere, we got to make a start. So, Governor, you have made a commitment in ICPIC. Each and every one of us, the 20 coalition members, if we can make a commitment even 50,000 to setting up our GBV strategy in our district and province, that's a great start compared to 45 years of our country. So this is what we are doing in the capital city. We are supporting the referral pathway, but it's broken down. So we are now focusing on prevention, behavior change. And we've got a number of programs going on in behavior change. Later on, when this session comes, you will hear what we are doing in behavior change. So this is all I want to say. My challenge and appeal to all of us, members of the coalition, members of parliament. Thank you, everyone.
There you go. Can we thank the governor for NCD, host for the event, at least one of two hosts, NCD Metropolitan Superintendent Pero Drano, and of course the city manager Bernard Kipit. Hey folks, thank you so much. You've been such a wonderful audience this far, and the house is still packed to the brim. An interesting deliberations earlier on session one. So much experience in one room, I must admit. And I like to invite the speakers and the leaders in the room to join the governor, and the prime minister's not here, but I suppose the ministers who are up front here, for a family photo. All right, so we're going to take a shot. It's probably the shot, the class of the year 40, might want to call it that way. Our ministers, can we also thank our ministers who are still here with us, the Honorable Wake Goy, the Honorable Timothy Masiu, the Honorable Justin Tachenko still here with us. And of course, I understand the member for Northeast is also here as well. The Vice Minister, Assistant Prime Minister, member for Ijibitari, the Honorable Richard Masri rather, is still here as well. Okay, all right, so our ushers will help you, give you some direction as to how and where you're going to stand and take a pose for a photo. And after the family shot, I'd like to invite you all to lunch. The lunch, of course, kindly hosted by UNICEF. Now, just a quick word. When you come back, the governor was alluding to the two different groups. That you come back in after lunch, you take up your seat inside of either of the room. Parallel, there will be parallel sessions here. Session B up to my right, which is on prevention. And what was the other one again on the left? Session A. Response session A will be on this side of the building, and session B. So when you sit up there, after the session on walking the talk, the building will be divided. The petitions will be pulled, and so when you come in after lunch, please take up the seats appropriately on either side of the building. All right, so much talking. We'll go for a photo shoot here, and we'll break for lunch. Yes? Yes, and I've just been friendly reminded to the governor for West Civic also, so thank you, Governor. Thank you. There you go.